I turned my everyday skills into divine powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 by the expensive one. Manager Zhang, I want to buy a sword. Guo Pixiu spoke loudly, clearly audible to everyone in the shop. No problem, Master Guo, please come this way. Zhang Xingai quickly ushered Guo Pixiu to a nearby chair. Guo Pixiu sat there with a sullen look on his face. He immediately drew the sword from his waist and said, Manager Zhang, look at what my sister has done to my sword. Zhang Xingai took the sword from Guo Pixiu and saw that the blade was riddled with notches, resembling saw teeth. How did she do that? Manager Zhang was surprised. My sister actually used my sword to chop my father's 3-pearl sword for fun, and it ended up like this. I'm so angry. How can a little girl be more mischievous than a little boy? Guo Pixiu said angrily. Mr. Guo, calm down. We just happen to have a new sword in our store, even better quality than this one. Let me show it to you. Zhang Xingai waved to the nearby clerk. The clerk immediately fetched a sword with the inscription Wei Yi and held it before Guo Pixiu. Guo Pixiu took the sword, examined it carefully, and his eyes suddenly brightened. It looks really good. A sword with the inscription Wei Yi on it. I've never heard of one before. What? 100 taels? That's too expensive. Are you trying to steal me? A nearby customer suddenly clamored in dissatisfaction, catching Guo Pixiu's attention. The clerk quickly began to explain why the sword cost 100 taels. Manager Zhang, this sword costs 100 taels? Guo Pixiu looked at Zhang Xingai with a hint of surprise. That's right. That's a bit outrageous. I've never heard of a jeweled sword selling for 100 taels before. Guo Pixiu was a little surprised. Master Guo, this sword is expensive for a reason. As the saying goes, cheap goods are not good, and good goods are not cheap. Our Wei Yi character sword is the finest of all jewel swords. The swordsmith who forged this sword, though a newcomer, is truly exceptional. He achieved an A grade in the assessment, a feat never before achieved. Shopkeepers Du and Qiu nearly came to blows over his possession. Furthermore, the jewel sword he forged has achieved a miracle, elevating the performance and quality of jewel swords to a whole new level. The jewel swords currently on the market simply cannot compare to this Wei Yi character sword. Zhang Xingai spoke with conviction. While there was a hint of exaggeration, it was largely true. Therefore, he felt no guilt in saying this. Is this true? Manager Zhang, please don't try to fool me, Guo Pixiu asked, slightly surprised. How dare I? If you don't believe me, go to the swordsmith department and ask. Let me tell you, we have an instrument for testing the ultimate performance of swords. It's this. Zhang Xingai pulled a sword testing rod from his sleeve. We call it a sword testing rod in our trade. If it leaves a nick on an ordinary jeweled sword, it's already a good thing. But this sword can easily cut through it without a scratch. Tell me, isn't that a high-ranking judge? Hearing Zhang Xingai's words, Guo Pixiu's eyes lit up. Young Master Guo is so valiant and extraordinary, he deserves a top-quality sword to match you. Those swords forged by the outdated swordsmiths at Giant Feng Tower across the street are already commonplace. They're not worth buying. Look at them now, they're even on sale. How can such cheap stuff be worthy of young Master Guo's aura and status? Zhang Xingai's words made Guo Pixiu beam with joy. Manager Zhang, what you said makes perfect sense. I agree. Good things don't come cheap, and cheap things don't come good. If I'm going to buy something, I'll buy the best, and this is it. Guo Pixiu beamed, delighted with the sword before him. Alright, Master Guo, I'll give you the Wei Yi sword. Zhang Xingai exclaimed immediately. His words immediately caught the attention of all the guests. What a rich man. He's buying a sword worth 100 taels. Isn't this the young master of the Dayan gang? TSK, what a generous man. Guo Pixiu felt incredibly refreshed by the attention. Never before had he attracted this much attention to a single sword. It seemed like spending 100 taels of silver on a sword was well worth it. Hey, yesterday I came to see the Wei Yi sword. It was selling for 80 taels of silver. How come it's gone up to 100 teals today? You, Wanjian Pavilion, are really ruthless. Giant Feng Tower is having a sale, but you're not even offering a discount, and you're even raising the price. A nearby customer complained. My dear guest, you don't know, our Wei Yi sword is in short supply right now. We'll have no trouble selling it at 100 teals. If you don't buy it today, the price might go up in a few days. The clerk explained. Yes, to be honest, this Wei Yi sword is a real collector's item. You won't find another jewel sword like this on the market, another clerk echoed. Overhearing the conversation between the clerk and the customer, Guo Pixiu's eyes flickered, and a smug smile crept across his lips. This sword is actually appreciating in value. What a bargain. Zhang Xingai took Guo Pixiu to choose a scabbard, then went to the counter to pay, and sign the receipt. Guo Pixiu finally got his wish, and hung the Wei Yi sword around his waist. Hey, Manager Zhang, can you give me one of those sticks? Guo Pixiu suddenly leaned over to Zhang Xingai and whispered. A sword testing stick. Yes, can you? Of course, here you go. Zhang Xingai handed the sword testing stick to Guo Pixiu. After seeing Guo Pixiu off, Zhang Xingai happily ran upstairs and told Du Jiang the good news. Well, great. Let's see. The Wei Yi sword will be in great demand in the next few days. Du Jiang said with a smile. After Guo Pixiu left the Wanjian Pavilion, he boarded the carriage at the gate and announced, let's go to the Crown Prince's mansion. The Crown Prince's mansion he was referring to was the residence of Zhao Hanqing, the illegitimate son of Prince Jinggan. Zhao Hanqing's mother was a merchant woman and held no status within the palace. Unfortunately, Zhao Hanqing was a complete wretch in martial arts, even less adept at leading troops in battle, and a complete failure in his studies. He was practically useless. He was the least favored of Prince Jinggan's sons, and with no hope of inheriting the throne, he left the palace upon reaching adulthood, to establish his own residence. He often enjoyed socializing with the sons of the city's wealthy and powerful, often hosting gatherings at his residence. However, gatherings of these wealthy, but uneducated young men naturally weren't about discussing history, philosophy, or reciting poetry. Instead, tea, wine, and swordplay became the main focus of their gatherings. This afternoon, Zhao Hanqing hosted a wine tasting gathering. The attendees were primarily the sons of merchants and wealthy families. When Guo Pixiu arrived at the prince's residence, most of the city's wealthy young men had already arrived. The wine tasting wasn't scheduled to begin until later, so everyone was gathered in the main hall, enjoying tea and chatting. Several female musicians nearby were also playing beautiful music. Hey, Master Guo is here. Someone said with a smile as they saw Guo Pixiu approaching. Prince. Guo Pixiu walked up to Zhao Hanqing and bowed. Zhao Hanqing inherited his mother's beautiful face, with a face as white as jade, sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and a very handsome appearance. A small gift for you, Prince. I hope you will accept it. Guo Pixiu presented Zhao Hanqing with an exquisite little box. You are so polite, Master Guo. Please take a seat. Zhao Hanqing said with a smile as he took the box. Chapter 27, Young Master Sword Fight. Young Master Guo, why are you here so late? Someone close to Guo Pixiu asked with a smile. A maid from the mansion immediately arrived to serve Guo Pixiu cakes and tea. Before I came here, I went to the Wanjian Pavilion. Oh, by the way, Prince, I just bought a New Year's Pearl sword there. Would you like to take a look? Guo Pixiu looked at Zhao Hanqing again. Young Master Guo, you're such a joker. What's so great about a Yezu Pearl sword from the Wanjian Pavilion? Who among us here hasn't seen one, especially a well-informed prince? A handsome man with phoenix eyes, a defiant gaze, and a handsome face said. His name was Wan Zai, the son of Wan Yinchang, a wealthy merchant in the city. Haha, yes, what's so great about a Yezu Pearl sword from the Wanjian Pavilion? A young man next to Wan Yinchang echoed with a look of sarcasm. You've really never seen this sword of mine. Guo Pixiu said with a hint of pride. TSK, how is that possible? The Wanjian Pavilion's Zhu sword, Qian sword, and Zhang sword, who among us hasn't seen them? How could we possibly possess all three? Wan Zai said unconvinced. Zhao Hanqing smiled, but his gaze toward Guo Pixiu hinted at a hint of doubt. Has anyone seen the Wei Yi sword? Guo Pixiu said. taking off his sword and holding it in his hand. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never heard of it. What Wei Yi sword? I've never heard of it. Could it be some unknown swordsmith? It's understandable we haven't heard of him. Wanzai sneered. Could it be a newly minted swordsmith? Zhao Hanking asked. Yes, he is a newly minted swordsmith, but the swords he forges, both in quality and performance, far surpass any other jeweled swords on the market. They are truly top tier. Guo Pixiu said seriously. Haha, Master Guo, you're such a boaster. Everyone in this city knows that among all the jeweled swords, the best is the Ming sword in my hand. Wanzai stood up and said unconvincedly. That's right, how good can a sword forged by a rookie be? Are you being ripped off, Master Guo? Wanzai, your Ming sword is on sale right now, only 50 or 60 taels of silver. Do you want to buy another one? Guo Pixiu said with a smile. Impossible. Wanzai's face turned cold, and he naturally didn't believe it. If you don't believe me, go to Jianfeng Tower and take a look yourself. Hey, I think I heard they're having a sale on their swords. Mr. Guo, you say your sword is top notch. How can you prove it? Each precious sword from a different family has its own merits. The difference between them is inherently difficult to define. Good or bad isn't something you can just say. That's right. To sell a sword, they naturally exaggerate. You don't have to take it at face value. Chimed in a wealthy young man who was close to Wanzai. Hearing the crowd's words, Guo Pixiu pulled a sword testing rod from his waist, held it up, and asked, does anyone here know what this is? Everyone's gaze converged, some frowning in confusion, others shaking their heads slightly. This is a sword testing rod, right? 9th-grade swordsmiths use it to test the ultimate performance of their swords, Zhao Hanking said. The prince is indeed knowledgeable. That's right, it's the sword testing stick. Young Master 1, how about a bet and a competition? It'll be fun for everyone here. Guo Pixiu glared at Wanzai provocatively. What's the competition? Wanzai asked unconvinced. Let's see whose sword can cut through the sword testing stick. Hearing Guo Pixiu's words, Zhao Hanking raised an eyebrow, a hint of interest in his eyes. Everyone present also became interested. Some of the young masters who were eager to watch the fun began to boo and fan the flames. Excellent, young Master Guo, that's a good suggestion. That's right, young Master 1, let's compete. The Mingzi sword will definitely win. I'll bet 10 taels of silver, young Master 1, please. Guo Pixiu pulled 10 taels of silver from his pouch and placed them on the coffee table. He looked at Wanzai with a smile. Wanzai frowned. Seeing the looks on his face, he couldn't back down. He immediately took out 10 taels of silver and placed them on the coffee table. Let's compete. Am I afraid of you? Wanzai drew his sword. Everyone can place a bet, Guo Pixiu said. Most of the people present followed suit. Of course, those close to Guo Pixiu backed him. Those close to Wanzai all placed their bets in his favor, each with a varying amount of silver. But the total came to nearly 100 taels. Everyone went to the courtyard, and Zhao Hanking ordered his servants to bring a wooden block. He then took the sword testing stick from Guo Pixiu's hand, examined it, and then handed it to a servant to secure it to the block. Which of you two will go first? Zhao Hanking asked. Young Master Guo, you propose the competition. You go first. Wanzai said. Alright. Guo Pixiu drew his sword, but hesitated. He suddenly remembered that he'd only heard Zhang Xinggai's story. He hadn't actually tested it. If he couldn't cut the sword testing rod, wouldn't that be embarrassing? That manager Zhang wouldn't lie to me, would he? Guo Pixiu thought. Master Guo, what are you still standing there for? Wanzai said again, a sneer playing on his lips. He felt that Guo Pixiu was just being mysterious. Guo Pixiu steeled his resolve, gripped his sword tightly, and raised it high. He slashed down with a powerful force. After all, he had reached the 5th level of the Kame realm, so his strength was more than sufficient. With a clang, the sword testing rod in the wooden block beneath it was split apart. The front half of the sword sank directly into the stone slabs on the ground. Seeing this, no one was overly surprised. After all, they had no idea what the sword testing rod was, nor did they know what this strike would signify. However, Zhao Hanking's eyes flashed with surprise. He was the only one who knew what a sword testing rod was. Prince, I'm truly sorry. I used too much force and damaged the floor of your mansion. Guo Pixiu bowed, secretly relieved. It seemed that Zhang the steward hadn't lied. The sword was indeed incredibly sharp. No problem. Zhao Hanking waved his hand, quickly walked over to Guo Pixiu, took the sword from his hand, and examined it carefully. Surprisingly, it was intact. The blade and blade were still as smooth as a mirror, with only a few scratches. The toughness and sharpness of this sword were probably not much inferior to his own 3-bead sword. Although he was surprised, he didn't show it, instead waiting for the next trick. He ordered someone to bring a new wooden block and resecure the sword testing rod. Guo Pixiu had cut off a small section of the sword testing rod, but a long section remained. Young Master One, please. Guo Pixiu looked at Wanzai with interest. Wanzai stepped forward and drew his sword. He briefly considered showing off by holding it one-handed, but then changed to a two-handed grip. After all, it would be embarrassing if he failed to sever the sword testing rod due to a lack of strength. So, he gathered all his strength and struck down fiercely. Clang, the same sound of metal clashing, this time even louder than before. However, Wanzai's sword stopped in the sword testing rod, unable to advance any further. His sword only cut through more than half of the rod's depth, not breaking it. In contrast, a large piece of the Ming sword in Wanzai's hand had broken off. Seeing this, Wanzai's face changed drastically, and his heart ached. The crowd present only realized what was happening, their eyes widening in surprise as they looked at Guo Pixiu. In such a contrast, the verdict was truly over. Guo Pixiu wins. What a good sword. It really is a good sword. Zhao Hanking exclaimed in admiration, while holding Guo Pixiu's sword. Thanks to everyone for their monthly tickets and recommendation tickets, and thanks to no one for giving me 100 Kidian coins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. Why did they all go to the opposite side? This. Wanzai felt a burning pain on his face as he looked at the shattered sword in his hand. However, no one present cared about his shattered sword, all their attention was focused on the Wei-shaped sword in the crown prince's hand. Looking at the cold, unstoppable sword, he suddenly felt that his own sword was no longer as valuable. Master Guo, is this sword truly a dual sword? Yes. How can it be so sharp? Of course, the royal pearl seal is here. If you don't believe me, go to the Wanjian pavilion and see for yourself. No one would sell a 3-jewel sword as a single jewel sword. And the swordsmith is a recently registered 9th grade swordsmith. You should be able to find him at the swordsmith department, Guo Pixiu said with a hint of pride. He felt incredibly happy. This sword is truly remarkable, brother Guo. I wonder how much it costs? I'd like to buy one, too. A good sword is naturally a bit expensive. 100 taels of silver. 100 taels of silver? Someone was slightly surprised. After all, such a high price had never been seen before. It's certainly not cheap, but such a fine sword is certainly worth it. Yes, I'll give this sword to my brother, and I'll trade it for a Wei sword. Everyone, hurry up and buy it. I heard at the shop that this Wei sword was selling for 80 taels yesterday, but due to supply shortages, it's already 100 taels today. It might even go up tomorrow, Guo Pixiu added. Everyone, does anyone want to go with me to the 10,000 swords pavilion? This Wei sword is quite good, worthy of a collection. Zhao Hanking said seriously. Although his current sword was a 3-pearl jewel, he loved collecting swords. He had a collection of some of the most famous 1-pearl jewel swords on the market. Seeing a 1-pearl jewel sword of such excellent quality and impeccable condition naturally tempted him. So he wanted to buy one for his collection. Prince, if you like it, I'll give it to you. Guo Pixiu said. No need. How can I take away someone's love? I'll buy one myself and keep it as a treasure. Prince, I'll go with you. Wanzai said quickly. His sword was broken, and he had to buy a new one. 100 taels of silver was no small sum, but he could afford it with a little effort. He'd just have to tighten his belt and control his lower body for the next few months. And although he'd lost the previous competition and felt deeply unconvinced, it had to be said that the Wei-shaped sword truly amazed him and moved him deeply. Instead, the Ming-shaped sword in his own hand seemed to have become a pillar of shame. He didn't want to look at it again. And given its quality, he was certain that it would become the most famous jeweled sword in King's House City. Just as Guo Pixiu had said, if we don't get it soon, the price might even go up later. I'll go too. Let's go together. Everyone echoed. Inside Giant Feng Tower, Qiu Zuanji, who was sipping tea, frowned slightly after hearing the store manager's report. No discount, and the price has even gone up. Has Du Yujiang gone crazy? Maybe he guessed our intentions and refused to lower the price to protect Wei Yi's reputation, said the manager, Chen Fulei. HMPH, that's great. I'll see how long he can hold out. After all, we can afford to wait. Even if we take a smaller profit, we'll still make some money. They probably won't be able to sell a single sword. By then, Wei Yi won't be able to make any money, so he'll naturally choose to cooperate with us. Qiu Zuanji looked confident. The main purpose of their discount promotion was to squeeze the Wanjian pavilion and suppress Wei Yi. The store was very busy today. Although the number of transactions wasn't high, at least the atmosphere was lively. If this continues, the Wanjian pavilion and Wei Yi will definitely go on a hunger strike. Master, you're wise, Chen Fulei said with a smile. Qiu Zuanji stood up, walked to the window, and took a sip of tea. He looked across at the Wanjian pavilion with a half smile and said, Du Yujiang, I'm sure to win this time. As he spoke, Qiu Zuanji saw a large carriage convoy approaching from the street in the distance, dispersing the pedestrians and attracting the attention of many passers-by. The exquisite carriages and decorations of the carriages revealed that they belonged to the city's wealthy families. It seems they were attracted by our event. Qiu Zuanji couldn't help but smile triumphantly. Hearing Qiu Zuanji's words, Chen Fulei also leaned over the window and looked out at the street. He was also surprised to see the large carriage convoy approaching. 1, 2, 3, 15, 16. Chen Fulei counted the carriages, his face filled with excitement. Oh my god, 16. The leading carriages from the Crown Prince's mansion. Come on, Fulei, come downstairs to greet the guests. Qiu Zuanji was in high spirits, secretly pleased with himself. He immediately put down his teacup and led Chen Fulei downstairs. Even the Crown Prince had come. Today's event had truly been a success. The cavalcade of wealthy young men paraded through the streets, causing quite a stir. Pedestrians watched curiously, whispering quietly. Qiu Zuanji led Chen Fulei to the shop in trance. His face beamed with pride as he watched the approaching carriages. He was ready to greet them. He truly wanted to see what Du Yujiang's expression would be when he saw this sight. However, to his surprise, the leading carriage from the Crown Prince's mansion simply passed by their door without stopping. It then headed straight for the 10,000 Swords Pavilion, finally stopping at its entrance. Zhao Han King disembarked and, under the curious gazes of those around him, walked into the Wanjian Pavilion. Other carriages then stopped one after another, and the young men from various families also disembarked, chatting and laughing as they entered the Wanjian Pavilion. Seeing this, Qiu Zuanji's smile fell completely, his expression turning rather grim. Questions filled his mind. What's going on? Chen Fulei was also filled with astonishment, asking with some confusion, did they go the wrong way? Seeing the group of wealthy young men all enter the Wanjian Pavilion, Qiu Zuanji's heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down. He couldn't understand why. He was clearly having a sale, so why were they all heading the other way? Had they really gone the wrong way? Quick, get someone to go the other way and see what's going on, Qiu Zuanji said, pulling Chen Fulei aside with a look of resentment. While waiting for news, Qiu Zuanji felt like an ant on the hot pan. He kept glancing towards the Wanjian Pavilion, his mind completely bewildered. However, not long after, the servant he had sent to gather information returned. Qiu Zuanji pulled him aside and asked, what's going on? Seeing Qiu Zuanji's murderous expression, the servant stammered, boss, they're all going to buy the Wei sword. What? They're buying it for 100 taels of silver? Yes, yes, all the Wei swords in the shop are sold out, and those young masters are still trying to place reservations. Hearing the servant's words, Qiyu Zuanji felt a buzzing in his head, and he was completely bewildered. All his efforts hadn't suppressed the Wanjian pavilion, or curbed the Wei sword. Why had the Wei sword instead been snatched up by wealthy young masters? Chapter 29, Painting Skill Upgrade, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Wei Yi, at home, was unaware that his sword, called the Wei character, had suddenly become a viral sensation. He had been diligently cultivating his painting skills, finally achieving the required proficiency to advance. After upgrading, Wei Yi had attained even greater proficiency. While not yet at the pinnacle of mastery, he could still paint with vivid, flowing lines. Furthermore, any figure or scene he carefully observed and memorized could be perfectly rendered. Wei Yi sat up in bed and glanced at the sky. It was almost dusk. It had taken him nearly another hour to integrate the information from his upgrade. After today's calligraphy and painting, the energy of the brush and ink had condensed into a small tree within his sea of consciousness. Wei Yi also felt that, since condensing this energy, his hearing and eyesight had become sharper, his brain more agile, and his memory significantly enhanced. His awareness of his surroundings had become clearer and sharper. "Brother, are you awake?" Wei Yi had just stepped out of his room when he saw a charming face peering out the window next door. It was his younger sister, Wei King. "Yes, I'm going to cook for you." Wei Yi stretched, feeling refreshed. "Brother, Manager Du from Wanjian Pavilion came by earlier and seemed to have something to ask you, but since you were asleep, he didn't bother you and said he'd come back later." "Oh, you were so sound asleep you didn't even notice," Wei Yi said with a smile, curious as to why Du Yujiang had suddenly come to see him. He had already forged 5 Yasu swords for him, which should have been enough to last a few days. But without giving it much thought, he went straight to the kitchen and began cooking. "Brother, I'll go with you." Wei King chased out of the room excitedly, following Wei Yi into the kitchen. Just as Wei Yi was in the kitchen preparing, Du Yujiang arrived by car from Wanjian Pavilion, heading towards the Wei residence. Du Yujiang was in high spirits. Today's battle against Giant Feng Tower had been a resounding victory. Although he had expected the Wei character sword to be highly sought after by the city's wealthy sons, he hadn't expected it to happen so quickly. Zhao Han King's arrival, accompanied by a group of wealthy young men, instantly made the Wei character sword famous. He had also deliberately spread the news today. The key reason was that these wealthy young men would influence each other, so the Wei character sword's fame would undoubtedly rise in the coming days. This completely shattered Giant Feng Tower's plans. Du Yujiang was well aware that Wanjian Pavilion currently only had one 9th grade swordsmith, Wei Yi. If they competed with Giant Feng Tower in sales, even if they exhausted Wei Yi to death, they would still not be able to compete with Giant Feng Tower's 5 swordsmiths. Therefore, if they couldn't win by quantity, they could only win by price and profit. Giant Feng Tower offered crazy discounts, and they responded with crazy price hikes. This back and forth highlighted the Wei character sword's high status. Furthermore, their actions would arouse the curiosity of many, who would undoubtedly want to explore the reasons behind it. This gave them a perfect opportunity to promote Wei Yi and establish him as a star swordsmith. Crucially, Wei Yi just happened to possess such skills. The swords he forged were truly top-notch, worthy of their high price and status. Everything came naturally, but the perfect backdrop and support of the Giant Feng Tower event accelerated everything. From the outset, Du Yujiang positioned the Wei character sword as a top-tier precious sword. His target audience was the city's dignitaries, the wealthy. These individuals purchased swords, not for combat or self-defense, but to demonstrate their status and position. Qiyu Zuanji, by discounting those once renowned swords like cabbages at a market, was effectively devaluing them and destroying their reputation. Who would still be willing to buy their swords? Even the wealthy sons of wealthy families who once owned those swords felt their weapons were no longer worthy of their status. Naturally, they would turn their attention to the Wei character sword, which could enhance their status and position. This was why so many wealthy young men were buying the Wei character swords today. It could be said that Qiyu Zuanji single-handedly destroyed the brand reputation that the 5 9th grade swordsmiths had built up over the years. He had sent all these high-end customers to Wanjian Pavilion, giving them to Wei Yi. As for the mid-range and low-end consumers, they weren't what they needed at the moment. It didn't matter if they gave them to Jianfeng Tower. Not long after, Du Yujiang returned to the Wei residence. Hearing that Wei Yi was cooking in the kitchen, he went straight in. The aroma wafting through the air made Du Yujiang swallow hard. "He's cooking," Du Yujiang said, smiling from the doorway. "Manager Du, you're here. Kinga, take Manager Du to the living room first," Wei Yi said to Wei King. No, I'll just talk to you here," Du Yujiang said. "Alright then." Wei Yi abandoned his politeness and placed the sliced yam into the casserole, where the broth was bubbling and fragrant. "It seems you're quite skilled at cooking too. Just the smell of this is mouth-watering." Du Yujiang gulped. "Well, I'm not being modest. My cooking skills are as good as blacksmithing. Haha, how about you, shopkeeper Du? Stay over tonight and try some. And you were wondering how I heat the stone and the sword together? Let's talk after dinner," Wei Yi said with a smile. He had always felt that Du Yujiang had been very helpful with his uncle's affairs, a debt he could repay far more than simply by collaborating with the Wanjian Pavilion. So, he was willing to befriend Du Yujiang and share some of his knowledge of heat treatment methods. Perhaps it could help him find some inspiration and break through his bottleneck. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Du Yujiang's face was filled with delight. He could enjoy delicious food while listening to Wei Yi's description of his unique technique, so naturally, he couldn't refuse. "Okay, then I won't be polite with you. Chuanzi, go buy a jar of good wine." Du Yujiang turned and said to the servant behind him. The servant named Chuanzi responded, took the silver from Du Yujiang, and quickly ran out of the courtyard. "Oh, I almost forgot about the main thing. I'm here to tell you good news. Your Wei sword has become extremely famous today. The 5 swords I sent you have all been sold, and there are still 4 more pre-orders. Here is the money for the 5 swords, a total of 400 taels." Du Yujiang pulled out the silver notes from his pocket. Upon hearing Du Yujiang's words, Wei King and Shitao's eyes widened. 400 taels of silver for 5 swords, that was too much. In the past, the swords forged by Wei Tieshan would only sell for 2 taels of silver each. To earn these 400 taels, he would have to forge at least 200 swords. Although they knew Wei Yi would be very profitable after becoming a 9th grade swordsmith, they had never imagined it would be so lucrative. "What did you do?" Wei Yi looked at Du Yujiang in surprise. He hadn't expected his sword to become so famous so quickly. Furthermore, the 5 swords earned a share of 400 taels of silver, meaning each sword sold for 100 taels. Despite such a high price, they were still sold out. It was obvious that Du Yujiang had used some trickery. Haha, a little trick, but it's also thanks to the giant Feng building's contrast. Hahaha. Du Yujiang couldn't help but feel happy when he mentioned this. Chapter 30, Guiding Du Yujiang, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Du Yujiang didn't immediately tell Wei Yi what had happened. After all, since they were staying for dinner, there was no rush. He also wanted to whet Wei Yi's appetite. Besides, Wei Yi was busy cooking, and talking to him would disturb him. So, he followed Wei King to the living room, where she made him some tea. After a long while, Wei Yi finally finished cooking all the dishes. He'd made an extra dish specially for tonight, and his aunt had helped with 2 more, for a total of 6. After all, they had guests, so it was important to be auspicious. The meal was served, and Wei Yi invited Du Yujiang to the table. But Wei Zhu planned to take Wei King and shit out of the kitchen for a quick bite. After all, this world still had its rules. Women and children weren't allowed to sit at the table when guests were present. "Madam Wei, there's no need to be so polite. We don't have so many rules in our family. It's more lively when we all eat together," Du Yujiang said with a smile. "Yes, auntie, let's eat together. There's so much food, we can't finish it all by ourselves," Wei Yi said. "Alright." Wei Zhu nodded. As soon as she spoke, Wei King and Shitao's eyes flickered with delight. Everyone took their seats, and Wei Yi invited Du Yujiang to sample his signature dishes. Du Yujiang was also impressed after tasting Wei Yi's dishes. His face was instantly filled with surprise and satisfaction. Wei Yi's dishes were not only visually appealing, but also richly flavored. The flavors of the various ingredients layered and intertwined in the mouth, leaving a lasting aftertaste. It offered an ultimate gustatory experience and a profound sense of satisfaction. You're not being modest. This tastes amazing. Du Yujiang couldn't help but give Wei Yi a thumbs up. He had tasted many delicacies from land and sea, and yet Wei Yi's dishes were no less impressive than those of top chefs. Haha, shopkeeper Du, you're too kind. As long as it suits your taste, Wei Yi said with a smile. Du Yujiang didn't rush to drink and chat with Wei Yi. Instead, he shared the meal with everyone, savoring the satisfaction it brought. After Wei Zhu, Wei King, and Shitao finished their meals and left the table, he and Wei Yi were almost done eating, so he suggested having a few drinks with Wei Yi. Manager Du, let me pour you some. Wei Yi helped Du Yujiang pour his own glass. Come on, Wei Yi, cheers. Du Yujiang and Wei Yi clinked their glasses. As the wine took a sip, Wei Yi couldn't help but frown slightly. This wine tasted a bit unpalatable. It wasn't nearly as good as the Baijiu he'd enjoyed in his previous life. It wasn't mellow, and even had a sour taste. Clearly, the alcohol concentration and purity were both very low. However, Wei Yi also recalled that ancient winner-making techniques weren't as advanced. They didn't even have distillation technology, so the flavor wasn't as good as modern Baijiu. He hadn't expected the difference to be so significant. It seemed he really needed to develop his winner-making skills. Wei Yi thought to himself, although this wine wasn't tasty, it was still drinkable. As they drank, they chatted, and Du Yujiang told Wei Yi about what had happened today. Wei Yi understood immediately. As a time traveler from Blue Star, he naturally understood Du Yujiang's approach. It had to be said that Du Yujiang truly savvy in business. This was perhaps why, despite being only a 7th grade swordsmith, he remained firmly in the shopkeeper's seat. Qiyu Zuanji, on the other hand, might be an accomplished craftsman, but business was different from ironwork. So, for a while, I'm afraid your Wei character swords will be in short supply. Du Yujiang said with a smile. Manager Du is truly brilliant. I guess I'll have to work overtime and forge more Wei character swords, Wei Yi said. Don't rush it. Take your time. After all, scarcity makes things valuable. Du Yujiang smiled slyly. Haha, I understand. Come, Manager Du, let me toast you. Wei Yi offered Du Yujiang a toast. He understood what Du Yujiang meant. The hunger marketing tactic was to whet the appetites of those wealthy men. Soon after, Wei Yi also chatted with Du Yujiang about his use of a combined heating stone and sword body. He wasn't afraid to reveal his technique, as he'd also kept some to himself. And crucially, the ability to precisely control the temperature was something not even ordinary people could master. Moreover, with his system, he knew he'd soon advance to the next level, becoming a 7th grade swordsmith like Du Yujiang. Perhaps one day, he might even have to take the 5th grade swordsmith exam alongside Du Yujiang. So, the techniques he possessed were merely the basics. He wasn't shy about sharing them. Du Yujiang's eyes brightened as he listened to Wei Yi's words, sometimes frowning, sometimes nodding, sometimes as if understanding something. A hint of excitement gradually crossed his face. Despite the alcohol, he felt his mind was clearer and more enlightened than ever before. Many of Wei Yi's words had given him significant insights, leaving him with a vague sense of grasping something. It was like seeing a glimmer of light in the darkness. He felt as if he was about to find his way forward. After seeing Du Yujiang off, Wei Yi returned to his room and continued to work on his calligraphy skills. It was almost midnight before he finally went to bed. Lying in bed, Wei Yi habitually glanced at the system dashboard. Name, Wei Yi. Root qualities, very poor lifespan. 42 years, plus 55 days, blacksmithing skill, level 2, 78% proficiency needed to upgrade, cooking skill, level 3, 72% proficiency needed to upgrade, calligraphy skill, level 3, 91%. Proficiency needed to upgrade, painting skill, level 2, 96% proficiency needed to upgrade, sculpting skill, level 1, 99% proficiency needed to upgrade, fitness skill, unranked, 90% proficiency needed to upgrade. Wei Yi lay in bed and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, Wei Yi woke up and went to the courtyard to practice the external exercises of the Legion body refining technique. After all, he wanted to quickly strengthen his body and improve his fitness skills. Although his internal energy cultivation progressed slowly, simply strengthening his physical body was a good option. Furthermore, after some practice, he was pleasantly surprised to discover that improving his proficiency in physical fitness could actually increase his lifespan. Half an hour of practice in the morning had added a day to his lifespan. This was even faster than a healthy diet. With this two-pronged approach, he could truly prolong his lifespan and live to be 100 years old. After breakfast, Wei Yi asked two blacksmiths to help him heat the materials and forge the sword blank. He then returned to his room and began practicing calligraphy, combining work and rest. After a while, Shitao ran into Wei Yi's room and said, "Brother, the sword blank is ready." "Okay, I see." Wei Yi put down his brush, wrote a freshly written ancient poem on the paper, and quickly left the room. Meanwhile, Wei King came in and began to help Wei Yi tidy up his room. But as she was about to clear her desk, she saw the poem Wei Yi had just written on the paper. "Brother, another poem." Wei King happily picked up the paper and examined it. The west wind blows the waves of Dangting Lake, and overnight the Xiangjun's hair turns white. After getting drunk, I don't know, the sky is under the water, and the boat is full of clear dreams, weighing down the stars. This poem feels so beautiful. Wei King's eyes sparkled, a sweet smile on her lips. Although she couldn't fully understand the poem's artistic conception, she simply felt it read beautifully. While the first two lines conveyed a sense of autumnal desolation, the last two lines were filled with a dreamy and romantic atmosphere. This poem is worth cherishing too. Wei King gently folded the paper, folding it neatly, and placed it in her waist pouch. The pouch was bulging, but it didn't contain any silver. It contained the ancient poems she had collected recently. She noticed that Wei Yi had been writing poems frequently recently, or writing things that she couldn't understand. She would then throw them away, feeling it was a pity. So later, when she cleaned Wei Yi's room, if she saw a relatively complete poem with clear handwriting, she would quietly fold it and store it in her small pouch. Chapter 31, The Thief. Today's Wanjian Pavilion was packed with people, the scene far more spectacular than yesterday's Giant Feng Tower event. In fact, crowds had already gathered outside the shop before it even opened in the morning, and carriages from various families had jammed the road. News of Zhao Hanking and a group of wealthy young men coming to buy swords had spread throughout the city yesterday. Du Jiang, with his men secretly spreading the word, had boosted the fame of the Wei Yi character sword overnight, attracting scores of sword enthusiasts to explore its contents, contributing to the excitement at the shop today. Of course, only a small minority of these customers were those who could afford and genuinely wanted to purchase the Wei Yi character sword. The majority had heard the rumors and wanted to see what kind of sword it was that had so much competition from the young masters. Unfortunately, they arrived with high hopes only to leave disappointed. The shop's stock of Wei Yi character swords had already sold out, leaving no real objects for them to admire. "When will this Wei Yi sword be available?" a wealthy young man in brocade robes inquired. "I'm sorry, sir, but it's hard to say exactly when. It's all pre-orders now, and we've already got 10. It'll probably take at least 10 days, and at most, it could take more than 2 weeks, the clerk explained. "Why would it take so long? It can't be helped, sir. After all, forging a fine Wei Yi sword requires hundreds of steps, so there's no rush. Our Wei Yi swordsmiths pour their heart and soul into every blade, striving for perfection. A good sword is worth the wait. Servant, reserve a Wei Yi sword for me. Here's the deposit." Someone nearby called out. "Young master, if you'd like to buy one, I suggest you pay a deposit as soon as possible. I'll arrange a number for you." The swordsmith, Wei Yi, said they are only accepting 20 reservations this month. If they're full, we'll have to wait until next month. "Okay, I'll reserve one too." Inside Giant Feng Tower, Qiu Zuanji looked at the endless stream of customers at the entrance of Wanjian Pavilion, his face gloomy. He was also quite depressed. He had never imagined that his maneuvering would not only fail to solve the problem, but also create a mess. Now, all his plans had been completely thwarted, all his efforts in vain. Meanwhile, Wanjian Pavilion, thanks to Wei Yi, had regained its former glory. Dual swords were the main product of every sword shop, the largest and most popular item in the market. Whoever could dominate the market was the winner. Clearly, Wang Jian Pavilion, with the help of the Wei Yi sword, had once again become the dominant force in this market. In the Wei family courtyard, Wei Yi forged the sword with utter concentration, unaware of the passage of time. Spending time outdoors forging iron had given his already jade-like complexion a healthy hue, but it couldn't conceal his refined and elegant features. After finishing her chores, Wei King took her basket and headed to the market to buy her food for the day. The blacksmith shop had reopened, and business was picking up. Wei Zushi needed to look after the shop during the day, so the task of going to the market fell on Wei King. After buying vegetables, meat, and fish, and preparing to return, Wei King saw a dirty little girl kneeling on the street begging at the market in trance. Feeling pity, she gave the girl her 2 remaining copper coins. Just then, a shifty-looking man in the crowd caught sight of the bulging purse at Wei King's waist. As Wei King turned and walked forward, he quickly followed. As he passed by Wei King, he snatched the purse from her waist and took off running. "Ah, my purse!" Wei King cried out and immediately chased after the thief, shouting, "Catch the thief! Catch the thief!" She couldn't outrun the thief, but her cries immediately caught the attention of those around her. Everyone turned their attention to the fleeing thief. No one helped to chase him, though some kind-hearted people joined in the shouting. Just then, a man in a green shirt, shopping on the street, heard the crowd's cries and immediately looked in the direction of the sound. He spotted the thief running into the alley. Without hesitation, he gave chase. But the thief was so fast that he couldn't catch up. "You little bastard, you can't get away. Stop right there," the man in green shouted. "Damn it, you nosy fellow." The thief cursed, but he didn't stop. He squeezed the purse in his hand, but it didn't contain any silver. Could it be banknotes? Haha, I'm rich now, the thief thought, running even faster. He rushed out of the alley and onto another main street. With a quick glance, he locked onto a dark alley in the distance, preparing to flee there. Just then, a magnificent carriage turned from the street corner. A wooden sign for the Jingan Prince's palace hung from the carriage, and 4 sword-wielding guards followed behind. "Catch the thief! Catch the thief!" the man in green shouted as he saw the guards behind the carriage, hoping to attract their attention and help intercept the thief. Before the guards could move, a figure in a crimson robe, graceful and heroic, burst from the carriage. As light as a swallow, her skirt fluttered, her silk shoes tapped the ground with a few leaps, and she was behind the thief. With a kick, she knocked him to the ground. The thief tried to escape, but with a swish, a flash of cold light, and a sharp sword appeared before his eyes. "Lady, spare my life. Lady, spare my life." The thief, instantly cowering, begged for mercy. The woman in red had an upright figure, a slender waist and long legs. Though her bust was flat, her features were radiant and captivating, with a refined beauty and a certain air of heroism. Her hair, held in a high ponytail with a silver hoop, accentuated her neatness and heroic presence. She reached out and snatched the purse from the thief's hand, angrily scolding, "You bold thief! How dare you steal someone's property in broad daylight?" With that, she gave him a few more vicious kicks. As a mid-level warrior, even though she didn't draw on her inner energy, the kicks still made the thief wail in pain. His bones seemed to be breaking. "Lady, spare me, lady, spare me. I was careless for a moment. I won't do it again. Please spare me." At that moment, the 4 guards had already gathered around, and the man in green who had been pursuing them also ran over, panting. "Take him to the government office," the woman in red sternly commanded. "Yes, Miss Lin." 2 sword-wielding guards escorted the thief to the county government office. The woman in red's eyes fell on the man in green, her brows furrowed slightly. The purse in his hand didn't resemble a man's, but more like a woman's. She asked, somewhat surprised, "Is this yours?" "No, it's not. I just heard someone yelling 'catch the thief,' so I chased after him. I didn't notice who lost it at the time, but I guess the owner is still at the market." The man in green scratched his head. "Where did you chase him from?" the woman in red asked. "At the market over there." The woman in red followed the man's gesture. She wanted to give the purse to the man in green, but she felt it was inappropriate. After all, he didn't own it. If he kept it, then her capture of the thief would be in vain. It would be better for her to go to the market herself and look for the owner. But she had to accompany the princess to Zushan residence for a gathering, so she couldn't delay too long. She had to go and return quickly. "Princess, I'm going to the market. I'll be back soon," the woman in red said to the carriage, then ran quickly towards the street where the market was located. Zuna. The carriage curtain opened, revealing a beautiful, charming face. Chapter 32. A stunning work. Lin Zuna searched the market, but could not find the person who lost the purse. So she had no choice but to leave the market and walk back. "I wonder what's in this purse," Lin Zuna said to herself as she looked at the purse in her hand. When she got the purse before, she felt it was very light. It didn't feel like silver or money inside, but some papers. Why not take a look at what's inside? Maybe we can find some clues. Lin Zuna thought so. So she opened the purse curiously and took a look. It turned out that it was indeed filled with papers. And it looked like the most ordinary papers, just neatly stacked. Lin Zuna was a little surprised and took out one of them. There was nothing special about it. If the little thief knew that it was filled with papers, he would regret it so much. Lin Zuna laughed secretly, but she couldn't resist her excessive curiosity and opened the paper to take a look. It turned out that there seemed to be a poem written on the paper. "The west wind blows the waves of Daunting Lake, and the king of Xiang has many white hairs overnight." What a beautiful poem. Lin Zuna's eyes lit up. Although she didn't know much about poetry, far less than Princess Zhao Jinsi, she could still sense the profound meaning and brilliant writing between the lines. It evoked a touch of autumnal melancholy, yet also exuded a sense of grandeur and romance. It's truly wonderful. The more I savor it, the more I appreciate it. The princess loves poetry. I'll take it back and show it to her, Lin Zuna thought to herself. Since the purse's owner couldn't be found for the time being, she could only return to accompany the princess to Zushan residence and then find a way to find the owner later. Lin Zuna hurried back to the carriage. The guards had already returned from the county government office. With light steps and agility, she leaped onto the carriage, then drew aside the curtain and slipped inside. Inside sat a remarkably beautiful woman. She wore a sky blue double-breasted ruched skirt, revealing her graceful curves. Her appearance was breathtakingly beautiful, beyond compare. Her skin was as white as snow, her heart was refined and elegant, and she was a noble and transcendent woman. But what caught her most attention were her beautiful eyes. Like an ice mirror, they shone brightly. She was Prince Jingan's only daughter Zhao Jinsi. "Princess, let me show you this 7-character quatrain. I wonder if you've seen it before," Lin Zuna said with a charming smile. Zhao Jinsi was not only stunningly beautiful, but also exceptionally talented, proficient in poetry, song, kin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She was particularly obsessed with poetry. So, upon hearing Lin Zuna's words, her eyes flickered with curiosity, and her gaze immediately fell on the paper in her hands. "Let me see." Zhao Jinsi curiously took the paper from Lin Zuna and examined it carefully. Her eyes lit up, and her beautiful eyes widened slightly. The poem's language was fresh and beautiful, its style light and graceful. Though seemingly understated, it held a profound and transcendental meaning. The poetic scene was ethereal and fantastical, captivating the reader. Truly a rare masterpiece. Moreover, the writer was a master of calligraphy, his brush strokes flowing with a bold and elegant grace. The poem's artistic conception perfectly complemented the author's words. It was clear this writer might be the author of the poem. He was undoubtedly a literary master. "Zuna, where did you get this?" Zhao Jinsi looked at Lin Zuna with surprise. "Oh, it's in this purse," Lin Zuna said. "That thief must have mistakenly thought it contained money and robbed someone. I just went to the market and couldn't find the owner, so I wanted to see if there were any clues inside, and I found a lot of paper inside. Here, there are a few more." Lin Zuna pulled out several more sheets of paper and handed them to Zhao Jinsi. Zhao Jinsi opened one of them. It was covered with countless words, all repeating the same poem. "A golden cup of clear wine costs 10,000. A jade plate of delicacies costs 10,000. I put down my cup and chopsticks, unable to eat, and I drew my sword and looked around, my heart bewildered. I want to cross the Yellow River, but ice blocks the river. I'm about to climb the Taihang Mountains, covered in snow. In my leisure time, I fish in the Emerald Stream, and suddenly I dream of sailing to the edge of the sun. The journey is difficult. The journey is difficult. So many forks in the road. Where are we now? There will always be a time to ride the wind and waves and set sail to cross the vast ocean. There will always be a time to ride the wind and waves and set sail to cross the vast ocean. After reading this poem, Zhao Jinsi was deeply moved, as if a power surged within him. The poem begins with a downbeat tone and ends with an uplifting one. It begins by expressing melancholy about the hardships of life, the sorrow of separation, and the frustration of ambition. But the final verse, however, unfolds with a majestic force, a force that overwhelms all obstacles and challenges. It is both inspiring and moving. One senses the author's heroic spirit and optimistic spirit. Even in the face of setbacks, he maintains the open-mindedness and courage to face the rising sun. At this moment, Zhao Jinsi's heart was turbulent, unable to calm down. She marveled at the author's impressive talent and lamented his life's fate. She admired his optimism and boldness even more. It seems this author, like my teacher, was born at the wrong time. His talent unappreciated. The current Great Yan dynasty is in turmoil, with corrupt officials in power, truly burying many talented individuals, Zhao Jinsi lamented to herself. From this poem, she could see the frustration and reluctance of this man, possessing lofty ambitions, but unable to realize them. He could only express his aspirations through poetry. He had rewritten this poem over and over again, even overlapping in some places. It was clear that his lofty aspirations, unable to find expression, could only be expressed through his pen and ink. On this page, he charted the course of the country, slayed the enemy with his brush, and served his country. Then, Zhao Jinsi carefully examined the poems written on several other sheets of paper. She was deeply moved. Many of these poems were truly astonishing, breathtaking, and awe-inspiring. Her pretty face flushed with emotion. My heart too was captivated by the poetic atmosphere, lingering on the elegant and magnificent rhetoric. It was as if I had experienced the joys and sorrows, the vicissitudes of life, alongside the author. In those poems, there is the romance of after drunkenness. I'm unaware of the sky's presence in the water, my dreams filling the boat weighing down the stars. There is the heroic spirit of the great rock soars up to 90,000 miles with the wind. There is the unrestrained elegance of kill one man every 10 steps, leaving no trace 1,000 miles away, brushing off my clothes and departing, concealing my achievements and fame. There is the confidence of I was born with talents that will surely be useful, even if I lose all my wealth, I will return. There is the arrogance of I laugh heartily at the heavens and leave, for I'm not a commoner. There is the open-mindedness of let me enjoy a glass of wine in my lifetime, why bother with 1,000-year-old fame after my death. There is the melancholy of drawing a sword to cut the water flows even more, raising a cup to dispel sorrow, the sorrow only grows more sorrowful. There is also the courageous spirit of there will come a time, to ride the wind and waves, and hoist the sails, to cross the vast ocean. There was the lofty ambition of why not a man take up his Wu Gao and conquer the 50 states. There was also the delicate tenderness of people experience joys and sorrows, separations and reunions. The moon waxes and wanes. This has always been difficult to achieve, but may we live long and share the beauty of the moon, even though we are thousands of miles apart. Each line of poetry seemed to paint a picture in her mind of a young hero, brilliant, uninhibited, profoundly learned, and deeply patriotic. A chivalrous swordsman, wielding a 3-foot-long sword at his waist, elegant and unrestrained, traversing the world with his sword, avenging vengeance with delight. A man of flesh and blood, experiencing joys and sorrows, possessing lofty ambitions and a tender heart. He was deeply attached to the mountains and rivers, intoxicated by poetry and wine, wielding his sword in the martial arts world, and dedicating himself to his country. Reading his poems, she could almost savor him, appreciating his unparalleled grace. She admired his unparalleled poetic talent, envied his boundless passion, and his self-confidence and optimism. She loved his uninhibited nature, and admired his lofty aspirations. She was even more curious about his life and his story. Zheojinsi suddenly wanted to understand this person's past, listen to his story, and participate in his future. However, what made her most regretful was that she could only read the first half of the poem drinking wine, and the words at the end were blurred. She felt unsatisfied and couldn't help herself. It was like reading a book halfway through and there was no sequel, or like the emotions were about to reach a climax, but they stopped abruptly. She was really uncomfortable all over, and she wanted to find the author immediately and let him complete the poem and make up for the sense of loss in her heart. Thank you all for your monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Chapter 33 The Polite Mr. Guo. After Wei King returned home, she told Wei Yi about her encounter with the thief. She was not asking for comfort or concern, but was just sad that the poems she had collected were lost. And those poems were, after all, written by Wei Yi and belonged to him. Now that she had lost her brother's works, she naturally could not hide the fact and had to tell the truth and ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry, brother, I lost those poems you wrote. Wei King felt a little guilty. It doesn't matter if the poems are lost. Are you hurt? Are you scared? Wei Yi asked with concern, with a little fear in his heart. The world is really going downhill. Nowadays, it is not safe in this city even in broad daylight. It's okay, brother. I'm not that fragile. I was startled at the time, but I wasn't really scared. After all, that thief was only after money and didn't dare to harm my life. That's good. Don't go out alone from now on. Ask a guard to follow you when you go out. Do you understand? Okay, I got it, brother. Will the loss of those poems affect you in any way? It's okay, it doesn't matter. I'm afraid that little thief couldn't understand my poems. If you like them, I'll rewrite them for you later. Okay, thank you, brother. Okay, go and rest now, Wei Yi said fondly, rubbing Wei King's head. Excuse me, Wei Yi, is Master Wei here? A voice suddenly came from the courtyard gate. Wei Yi looked over in surprise and saw several figures standing there. The leader was short and plain looking, but dressed in a jade-embellished brocade robe, a slightly exaggerated attire. This person was none other than Guo Pixiu, the young leader of the Dayan gang. Hey, young master, what are you doing here? The guards in the courtyard asked in surprise. Why are you here? Guo Pixiu looked at the guards with some surprise. He knew them all. They were all from his Dayan martial arts school. We've been hired to protect the Wei family, one of them said. Oh, then you guys have to work hard. Master Wei is a distinguished figure in our Guo family. You must protect him and his family. Do you understand? Guo Pixiu said sternly. Yes, we will serve you wholeheartedly until our death. Well, very good. Guo Pixiu nodded. He then looked at Wei Yi, who was approaching. Seeing his handsome face and elegant demeanor, he immediately guessed that he was Wei Yi. A smile spread across his face, and he bowed slightly. You are Wei Yi, right? Yes, I am. I wonder what you wish for, sir? Wei Yi returned the greeting. Hello, Master Wei, you are truly a distinguished figure. My surname is Guo, my given name is Pixiu, and my courtesy name is Xianlu. I'm the young leader of the Dayan gang. I bought your Wei inscribed sword the other day at the Wanjian Pavilion and I love it dearly. I was amazed by its sharp edge and admire Master Wei's exquisite craftsmanship. That's why I came to visit you, hoping to see your style and see how such a masterpiece is crafted. Guo Pixiu spoke politely and with considerable refinement. Mr. Guo, you are too kind. I don't deserve the title of Master Wei. Just call me Wei Yi. Wei Yi said with a smile. No, 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 in my heart, you are absolutely a master. I'm certain that you will become a master swordsmith in the future. Thank you for your kind words. By the way, I have prepared a small gift. I hope Master Wei will accept it. Guo Pixiu pulled an exquisite wooden box from his sleeve and presented it to Wei Yi. Mr. Guo, you're so polite. I appreciate the kindness, but the gift is unnecessary. Wei Yi declined with a smile. It's just a small gift, nothing more. I simply admire Master Wei and hope to make some friends with you. Guo Pixiu continued. He hadn't lied. He genuinely wanted to make friends with Wei Yi. Thanks to the Wei sword, he'd been able to give Wanzi a good slap at the party that day, which had been quite satisfying. So, he deeply admired the sword, and even the sword itself. He deeply admired Wei Yi, the forger of such a famous sword. A gentleman's friendship is as pure as water. If Mr. Guo truly wishes to make a friend of mine, then simply treat me with sincerity, Wei Yi said with a smile. He didn't know what the other party had given him, but as the saying goes, no merit, no reward. He didn't want to owe a stranger a favor. A relationship based on profit would always create unnecessary consequences. Before he got to know Guo Pixiu better, he didn't want to accept the gift, no matter how small. If they truly became close friends, even if the other party offered him a mountain of silver, he would gladly accept it. What a wonderful expression, Master Wei. I will treat you with sincerity. With your words, I, Guo Pixiu, have pledged my friendship to you. Okay, I take back this gift, Guo Pixiu said with a smile. He was also a discerning person, able to discern that Wei Yi was not one to seek personal gain, but rather a true friend worth befriending. Wei Yi smiled and nodded, then said, Master Guo, I'm in a hurry to forge a sword, so I won't be with you much longer. If you want to watch me forge a sword, just be casual. Kinga, make Master Guo a pot of tea later. Wei Yi said with a smile. No need to bother. Just give me a chair, Guo Pixiu said with a smile. The guards immediately followed Kinga into the hall and helped carry a chair, placing it near the smithy. As soon as Guo Pixiu sat down on the chair, the 4 strong men behind him immediately stepped forward. One of them pulled out an oil paper umbrella from nowhere and held it up to shade Guo Pixiu from the sun. Another pulled out a fan and fanned him. Another squatted down to massage his legs. Another peeled an apple, peeling it right there. Their movements were so skillful, it was clear they were well trained. But Guo Pixiu glared at them, and they understood. The umbrella holder shouted, put it away. The 4 of them quickly put away the oil paper umbrella, folding fan, and apple, as if by magic. Wei King was stunned. Guo Pixiu sat in a chair, curiously watching Wei Yi forge the sword. But the clanging sounds were like a lullaby, and his eyelids grew heavier than the hammer in Wei Yi's hand. And then, he leaned back in his chair and fell asleep. After an unknown amount of time, Guo Pixiu's snoring drowned out the clatter of the ironwork. Wei Yi looked up and saw 2 attendants standing beside her chair, one on each side. Guo Pixiu, head tilted, leaned against the waist of the attendant to his right, mouth wide open, sound asleep. But his sleeping posture was a bit revealing. His facial features, already uncoordinated, were twisted and distorted by gravity and friction, making them look quite comical. Wei Yi chuckled softly, then looked away, returning to his work. Hulin and Sun Fu, standing nearby, couldn't help but chuckle, exchanging a smile. The guards, however, were unfazed, their expressions remaining unchanged as they went about their business. After a long moment, one of the attendants gently patted Guo Pixiu, but he didn't respond. He shook him again. Finally, Guo Pixiu awoke from his dream and shouted unhappily, "What are you doing?" Drool. The attendant pointed to the corner of his mouth. Guo Pixiu finally came to his senses and quickly wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, remembering where he was. He glanced awkwardly at Wei Yi and the others, who were still concentrating on their forging. Then he glared at his attendants and whispered, "Why didn't you wake me up sooner?" They feigned deafness and remained silent. "Oh, I really slept a little late last night, and I even dozed off today," Guo Pixiu muttered to himself, pretending to stand up. He glanced at Wei Yi, who was so focused, and his admiration deepened. He was truly remarkable for being so absorbed in such a tedious task. It's true that being a swordsmith isn't easy. "Brother Wei." Guo Pixiu approached Wei Yi and bowed. "It's getting late, so I won't bother you any further. I'll come visit you someday, when I have time." "Okay, then I'll beg you not to see me off," Wei Yi said with a smile. Guo Pixiu bowed again, and prepared to leave with his 4 followers. Before leaving, he instructed the guards to be loyal to their duties and protect the Wei family. Chapter 34 Du Shaoling. What do you think of what I said just now? Didn't it sound quite cultured? After exiting the Wei family courtyard, Guo Pixiu suddenly looked at his attendant and asked, "Young master, you are already quite cultured. Stop the flattery and tell the truth." Indeed, you are quite cultured. That's good. Guo Pixiu smiled and nodded. Before coming here, he had inquired with Zhang Xingai in detail and learned that Wei Yi was originally a student, a true cultured man. So, he thought, when speaking to him, he couldn't seem too uncultured, lest they dislike him and refuse to be his friend. Fortunately, he often hung out with those wealthy young men who had little culture, but pretended to be cultured, pretending to be, communicating. He could actually speak a few elegant words. By the way, don't put on all that pomp and ceremony in front of Wei Yi from now on. He's a noble scholar and hates that kind of thing. Haven't you heard that a gentleman's friendship is as pure as water? I understand. By the way, young master, the apple is peeled. An attendant held up a peeled apple. Guo Pixiu took it, took a bite, and continued. Send someone to tell Master Wu later that the Wei family's security work doesn't have to be paid. Tell him to send another 10 or 8 people to protect the Wei family. I understand. In the evening, inside the Jingan Prince's mansion, Zhao Jinsi, returning from the Zushan Bureau's elegant gathering, stood at her desk, quietly poring over the papers spread out on it. She perused the poems, as if she had gained a deeper understanding. This, in turn, made her love them even more. She fetched brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. She copied the poems anew, framed them, and hung them in her study. How wonderful it would be if I could get the poet's pen and write it myself, Zhao Jinsi thought. She loved the original handwriting on the paper. Her own brushwork was much more immature by comparison, and it seemed only his handwriting could perfectly complement the poetic mood, achieving a perfect union of form and spirit. Unfortunately, King's House City was so vast that finding the poet was difficult. Otherwise, she really wanted to meet the poet in person, learn about him, hear his stories, perhaps even chat about history, exchange poems, and exchange insights. She also wanted to ask him for the second half of Song of the Wine. How can I find him? Zhao Jinsi thought. After all, she couldn't just post someone else's poem and look for the author. That would be rude. By the way, I could try to find the owner of this purse first. Zhao Jinsi's eyes suddenly fell on the purse. Perhaps the owner of this purse is a relative of the poet, and finding her would lead to the author. I can ask the government to post a lost and found notice, and perhaps that will lead to the discovery of the purse's owner. With this thought, Zhao Jinsi made up her mind and arranged for someone to visit the government office tomorrow. Zhao Jinsi refolded the papers and returned them to her purse. Then, standing over the poems she had copied, she continued to savor their charm. While she couldn't fully decipher the words and meaning of some of them, that didn't detract from the overall mood and impact of the poem. Unfortunately, every time she read Song of the Wine, she felt a sense of regret that something was unfinished. Princess, Master Du is here, a maid announced from outside the door. Quickly, invite him in, Zhao Jinsi said hurriedly. Just then, an elderly man with white hair and beard strolled in. Though his features were aged, his gaze was sharp, and he exuded a refined air. His name was Du Shaoling, courtesy name Xi, a renowned scholar of the Great Yan dynasty. He once served as Minister of Rights, before being demoted to a small county seat. Disillusioned with the political situation at court, he resigned and returned home. He was subsequently appointed by Prince Jingan as the principal of King Feng Academy, overseeing all academy affairs. King Feng Academy is the largest academy in Qingzhou Prefecture. Funded by the Jingan Palace, it serves as an academic research and educational institution. The Zhao family, a long-standing martial arts and military family, dates back to the previous dynasty. Many of them value martial arts, but few are well read. Qingzhou Prefecture, a place known for its tough people and a strong emphasis on military power over literature, was a rare place for scholars. However, the current Prince Jingan, a man who has been passionate about literature since childhood, struggled to find sympathetic friends and connections. Therefore, upon inheriting the throne, he actively promoted literature and founded King Feng Academy. It was he who sparked the flourishing of Qingzhou City's cultural scene, with scholars springing up like mushrooms after rain. Many people began to value reading and learning. Even martial artists found a fondness for composing poetry and prose. Zhao Jinsi inherited his father's love of literature. Princess, do you have any insights you'd like to share with me about the elegant gathering at Zushan Bureau today? Du Shaoling asked with a smile as he entered the study. Teacher, I didn't learn much from the gathering today, but I was fortunate to witness several masterpieces that deeply moved and astounded me, Zhao Jinsi said with a bow. Du Shaoling's curiosity sparked at Zhao Jinsi's words, and interest flickered in his eyes. Anything Zhao Jinsi could call a masterpiece must be quite the opposite. Teacher, please step aside. Zhao Jinsi ushered Du Shaoling aside, in front of a wall covered in calligraphy and paintings. These poems are the breathtaking works I was fortunate to witness today, Zhao Jinsi said, pointing to a few pieces of calligraphy on the wall. Du Shaoling's gaze focused intently, his eyes first landing on the untitled 7-character quatrain. But upon seeing the line, after being drunk, I don't know the sky is over the water, a boat full of clear dreams weighs down the starry sky, his aged eyes suddenly lit up with surprise. However, he didn't rush to comment, instead eagerly turning to another poem. The surprise on his face turned to wonder. His gaze grew brighter, even blazing. Finally, he seemed completely absorbed in the poem. His expression shifted from solemn to relaxed, from smiling to excited, from emotional to awestruck. His entire being seemed completely captivated by the poem's artistic conception and emotion. He wept and laughed along with the poem's content, toasted and sang together, and laughed wildly with it. He felt a strong emotional resonance within these poems, as if they spoke to his own soul. Many of the thoughts and emotions within them coincided with poems he had written before. But compared to his own poetry always seemed somewhat restrained, overly heavy and pessimistic. It lacked his majestic uninhibited spirit, nor his elegant, carefree, optimistic, and confident demeanor. That kind of courage and state of mind, the ability to bravely face adversity and an uncertain future, was something he had never possessed in his life. Yet, it was something he longed for and yearned for. Especially the line, I was born with talents that will be useful, and even if I lose all my wealth, I will still get it back, truly inspired him, and he clapped his hands in admiration. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Golden Veins. Princess, who wrote these? This person is truly a world-class poetic talent, leaving me feeling inferior, Du Shaoling said excitedly. Zhao Jinsi explained how he had obtained these poems today. So, I don't know who wrote them. I asked you to come here in the hope that you could identify which literary master wrote them. By the way, I have his manuscript here. Can you recognize it? Zhao Jinsi pulled another piece of paper from his purse and handed it to Du Shaoling. He examined the words, his eyes filled with admiration. Beautiful handwriting, as elegant and beautiful as his writing style. It's a pity that this person isn't someone I know. Hearing Du Shaoling's words, Zhao Jinsi felt a little disappointed. These poems mention names, allusions, and mountains and rivers that don't seem to belong to our dynasty. If it's not my ignorance, or if he's deliberately using metaphors, then this person is likely not from our great Yan dynasty, Du Shaoling said. Could he be a literary master from another dynasty? Zhao Jinsi's brows furrowed slightly, feeling that perhaps what her teacher had said was true. When she'd read those poems, she'd also felt that some of the content was unfamiliar to her, but she figured it might be her own limited knowledge and lack of understanding. If even her teacher didn't know, then perhaps he wasn't from the great Yan dynasty. If that were the case, wouldn't it be even harder for her to find him? Princess, if you can find this person someday, please introduce him to me and read his poetry. I felt a sense of connection, like I'd found a soulmate. Du Shaoling said, slightly excited. A true soulmate is hard to find, but reading these poems truly felt like finding one. Of course, he was more impressed by the poet's talent and spirit. After Du Shaoling left, Zhao Jinsi read the poem When Will the Bright Moon Rise? And felt deeply moved. She couldn't help but think of her father and brother far away at the border, and she wanted to compose the poem to express her feelings. Besides her love of poetry and song, she also excelled in music. In the past, at literary gatherings, everyone would play instruments, compose music to poems, and sing with abandon. Seeing this poem now further fueled her creative urge. Soon, the melodious sound of a zither echoed through the pavilion, its melody tinged with a hint of melancholy and desolation. This season, in particular, evoked a sense of bleakness and loneliness. Xiaojin's love of playing the zither and singing was well known to everyone in the mansion. So, the sound of the zither went unnoticed. However, as the lines, "When will the bright moon appear? I raise my cup to the blue sky, wondering what year it is in the palace above," echoed in the melody, it immediately captured the attention of everyone in the mansion. They stopped and listened intently. And when Xiaojin sang the lines, "I long to ride the wind home, but I fear the jade buildings, higher up, too cold. Dancing with my shadow, it feels nothing like being in the human world." Everyone's thoughts seemed captivated by the artistic conception conjured by the lyrics. It was as if a figure, like a banished immortal, soared to the moon palace on a gentle breeze. Before the jade-clad buildings, beneath the celestial moonlight, she danced alone, ethereal and transcendent. Yet, she felt immensely lonely and desolate. She could only gaze upon her own reflection. Using the moonlight, she conveyed her endless longing for her distant family. Xiaojin channeled her feelings through the rhythm and song, expressing her longing for her father and brother, and the loneliness and desolation she resonated with in the poetry. Through her voice and rhythm, one could sense a profound sense of longing and loneliness. People experience joys and sorrows, separations, and reunions. The moon waxes and wanes. This has always been difficult to achieve. May we live long, sharing the beauty of the moon, even though we are thousands of miles apart. When the song ended, time seemed to stand still within the palace. Everyone was transfixed, still wanting more. His heart was completely moved by the lyrics' expression of longing and loneliness. Before he knew it, his nose felt sore and his eyes welled up. Princess Jinxie is truly unrivaled in talent, capable of writing such a moving song. It's truly beautiful. May we live long and share the beauty of the moon, even though we are thousands of miles apart. The lyrics are so beautiful. The princess must be missing the prince. It's been almost half a year since he left for the Western Territory. I miss my brother and father so much. I wonder how the war is going over there. Jaina must be missing her father and brother. Woo woo woo. Why are you crying, grown man? Then why are you crying? I just got sand in my eyes. Meanwhile, Wei Yi, forging a sword at home, suddenly noticed a number of golden points of light suddenly appearing from thin air. Then they penetrated his body. He had also vaguely seen a few golden points of light not long ago, but had dismissed them as dazzlement. But now, the sudden appearance of so many light spots completely caught his attention. After all, it couldn't be that he suddenly saw stars for no reason. What's going on? Wei Yi was a little surprised. But at this moment, he vaguely felt that the small tree in his sea of consciousness seemed to move. Looking inward, he couldn't help but be surprised to find that there was a leaf on the small tree with golden veins emerging. Seeing this scene, Wei Yi was surprised, but he didn't know what happened. He didn't do anything, so why did such a change suddenly occur? Wei Yi was puzzled and could only put away his thoughts and continue to forge the sword. Wei Yi was busy until late at night. After completing the first step of heating and keeping warm for the 5 swords forged today, he went back to his room to rest. The fatigue of the day made him fall asleep. In the Jingan Palace, Xiaojin had already fallen asleep. In her dream, she saw a figure dressed in white as snow, as gentle as jade, and a graceful and extraordinary person. Under the moonlight, he raised his cup to the moon, sang with all his heart, danced and brandished his sword, as graceful as a startled swan, his robes fluttering, like a banished immortal. Although she could not see his face, she was captivated by that extraordinary figure. They recited poems and composed couplets with him, their music harmoniously playing. The ever-burning light, gentle as water, shone upon her graceful figure, beneath a light and silky satin nightgown. The next day, the county magistrate sent someone to the Wei family to inform them of Wei Tieshan's final verdict. Wei Tieshan was sentenced to 1 year of corvée labor and would be sent to the military camp under the command of Prince Jingan in the western border the next day. This news brought peace of mind to the Wei family. Everything was finally settled. Although Wei Tieshan still had to serve labor, it was a better outcome than execution. Moreover, only 1 year of labor was better than they had expected. In just a year, Wei Tieshan would be free. However, upon hearing this news, Wei Yi felt no reassurance, but rather a surge of unease. He knew full well that his uncle was still in danger while being escorted to the border. Only when his uncle was safely settled in the military camp would he finally feel at ease. If the Liu family refused to give up, they might actually spend a fortune and hire experts to rob and kill him along the way. After all, such things happened frequently in movies and TV series from his past life. He couldn't rule out the possibility. Chapter 36 The Second Transaction. Not long after the Yamen runners left, Du Yujiang arrived. He naturally knew of Wei Tieshan's final verdict. After all, it was Prefect Li who had helped secure that outcome. Du Yujiang promised to contact his acquaintances in the barracks so that Wei Tieshan would be looked after in the future, ensuring he wouldn't suffer incarceration. Furthermore, Wei Tieshan was a skilled blacksmith and was sure to be put to good use. When you send your uncle off tomorrow, remember to arrange for the escorting Yamen runners so they can take good care of him on the way. I've also found a few warriors to secretly protect him, Du Yujiang said. The last time they'd shared a drink and chatted, Wei Yi had generously shared his skills and experience with him, providing him with much inspiration. This had deeply touched Du Yujiang and left him feeling grateful. He had long considered Wei Yi a close friend, regardless of age. His current assistance to Wei Yi wasn't for the sake of Wanjian Pavilion, but simply for friendship. After Du Yujiang left, Wei Yi still felt a certain unease. It wasn't that he didn't trust Du Yujiang, but the Liu family was incredibly wealthy. He wasn't sure how many people the Liu family could bribe. After all, Liu Fugi surely knew this was his only chance to strike. He'd certainly stop at nothing. If even the warriors Du Yujiang had hired were bribed, Wei Yi couldn't imagine it. If only I could get that shaman to escort my second uncle, Wei Yi thought to himself. For some reason, he felt he was more reliable than the others. It was a shame he didn't even know who he was, let alone ask for his help. Wei Yi finished work early today. After dinner, he returned to his room and began practicing the external skills of the Legion body refining technique. After all, practicing these skills could increase his lifespan and strengthen his body. He also wanted to see how he would transform after reaching the first level. The external movements of the Legion body refining technique were relatively gentle, many similar to yoga. There was no need for heavy jumping, punching, or kicking. So practicing in his room was perfectly possible, and it wouldn't cause much noise. Even so, after a long session, he was sweating and panting. So he opened the window, letting the cool evening breeze in, bringing a slight chill. The two guards guarding his door were chatting about the girls in the brothels and the new Beijiu from the Kingpin liquor store. Because of Guo Pixiu, Daean Martial Arts School had added several more guards free of charge, now increasing the number of guards per shift to 6. Noticing Wei Yi opened the window, the two guards lowered their voices. After an unspecified amount of time, the silence outside grew even quieter. Even the clamor from the distant street had faded. Wei Yi was so absorbed in his practice that he had lost track of time. Seeing his proficiency level edging ever closer, he was filled with energy. Even if he had to work himself to death tonight, he would raise this fitness skill to the first level. Of course, it wouldn't be a complete bust, but the muscles were sore and the fatigue was real. It was just that, having battled cancer cells in a previous life, his perseverance was extraordinary. So he persisted in his exercises. What kind of martial arts are you practicing? Why does it look so strange? A voice suddenly came from outside the window. Wei Yi was surprised to hear it and immediately looked out the window. It was indeed the masked, nightgown-clad shaman. He was crouching on the windowsill, munching on a banana with relish. That's right, he was eating a banana. The mask, which originally covered his entire face, had a round hole cut out for his mouth. He was eating the banana through that hole. The scene was a bit hard to describe. When did you get here? Wei Yi asked with feigned indifference. Although he was delighted to see the shaman, he had been planning to ask him to help protect his second uncle. But there was no friendship between them, only a business deal. To ensure he had the upper hand in the negotiation, he couldn't appear too enthusiastic. Well, it's been a while. I saw you were so engrossed in your practice, so I didn't bother you." The shaman finished off the banana. Then he placed the banana peel upside down on the windowsill. The round hole in the mask nearly made Wei Yi burst out laughing. "What do you want from me?" Wei Yi wanted to test the other party's intentions before considering how to talk to him. "Guess. Kid, guessing? Shouldn't you be happy to see me? Why do you think so? Your second uncle will be exiled to the frontier for forced labor tomorrow. You should know that the Liu family will take this opportunity to take action against your second uncle. Don't you want to know what the Liu family is doing now?" "Of course I want to know." Wei Yi's eyes couldn't help but brighten a little, and he looked at the shaman with some surprise. This guy actually came here specifically for his second uncle's matter. That meant he was very likely to take care of this matter. He just might need to make another deal with him. The Liu family has truly invested heavily this time, intent on killing Wei Tieshan. Liu Fugi spent 5,000 taels of silver on a professional assassin from the Red Leaf Hall. He's a 7th rank warrior, and even the warriors Du Jiang hired combined are no match for him. Your uncle will undoubtedly die this time. Wei Yi's heart sank upon hearing the other party's words. 5,000 taels of silver, that's truly a huge sum. Under normal circumstances, it would have been more than enough to buy 10 lives. This Liu Fugi was truly determined to kill his uncle. "What do you need me to do in exchange for your help?" Wei Yi asked directly without further ado. He knew the other party wasn't here to scare him, or perhaps to jokingly observe his grief, sorrow, pain, and despair after learning the news. He had come tonight to make a second deal with him. "Are you not afraid I'll get you into trouble this time?" the shaman asked. "You were scared last time, but not this time. I like your straightforwardness and cleverness. I can really help you. Last time, you cost me 150 taels of silver, and I didn't hold it against you. This time, you have to help me forge 5 more swords, the same as last time, within 10 days. Deal." Wei Yi agreed readily. "Did you knock out my guards again?" Wei Yi looked out the window again. He saw the guards lying motionless on the ground. "Not this time. I just took some drugs. They'll be fine after a good night's sleep," the shaman said. "If I wanted you to help me get rid of the Liu family, would you be willing?" Wei Yi changed the subject. "I don't want to. The price is negotiable." "Not at the moment." "Then it's negotiable later?" "That depends on whether I can live to see that day." "You will definitely live 100 years. By the way, you will personally escort my uncle, right?" "Of course not. I have important matters to attend to here, but don't worry, I will arrange for others to go and ensure your uncle's safety." "Okay, thank you," Wei Yi said with a bow. In fact, he was truly grateful to the mysterious man before him. Regardless, his presence helped him resolve many crises. Although it was a transaction between them, without him, he would probably not be able to hire a master like him, even if he spent money to help. "I'm leaving now. By the way, let me kindly remind you that with your training method, you will never become a martial artist, even if you practice for a lifetime." "Who said I want to become a martial artist? I'm just exercising." "That's alright. Goodbye, fitness boy." Chapter 37 First Level Fitness Skills. After the mysterious man left, Wei Yi finally felt completely at ease. With his help, he should be able to ensure his second uncle's safety this time. "It's a pity he's a shady agent, otherwise we might become friends in the future," Wei Yi thought. In fact, from their previous interactions, he had sensed that he was a good person. After all, with his extraordinary strength, it would be easy for him to take a few swords from him. Even if threatening him in person failed, stealing the swords in secret was no problem. But he didn't do that, instead negotiating with him face to face, even offering to pay a high price. This showed that he was a genuinely honest person, forced to live in secrecy for certain reasons. Furthermore, this time, knowing his second uncle was in danger, he came to him to tell him. It seemed like he was trying to make a second deal with him, in exchange for the 5 swords. But Wei Yi knew full well that this deal was based entirely on his willingness to help him. The Liu family spent 5,000 taels to hire a 7th rank expert. Doesn't that mean they were wealthy and generous? Rather, it means that to hire a 7th rank expert, 5,000 taels of silver would be required. Yet, this shaman agreed to help him protect his second uncle's life, yet only asked for 5 single jeweled swords. It wasn't that he was foolish or generous, but he only needed 5. The rest was a favor. He didn't need you to return them, so he only asked for 5 swords as a token of his trade. Wei Yi knew his limitations. He wouldn't be so self-righteous, thinking his forged swords were unrivaled and driving everyone crazy. He simply had a chivalrous heart. He couldn't lose his sense of duty. So, Wei Yi was actually grateful to this shaman. He hoped that one day he would no longer have to live in the shadows, behind a mask. Perhaps then, we could have a drink together. Putting his thoughts aside, Wei Yi continued his training. He was just a fraction away from advancing. Anticipation welled up in him, and he couldn't help but work even harder. After practicing for about 2/4 of an hour, his fitness skill finally showed readiness for advancement. Wei Yi sighed deeply and sat down on the floor, sweat pouring down his forehead, yet a smile etched on his face. After working all night, he had finally reached the first level of his fitness skill. It was already midnight, and Wei Yi drew himself a bath before relaxing in bed. Then, with a thought, he upgraded his fitness skill to the first level. At the same time, a tingling sensation washed over him, and some information, though not much, entered his mind. It felt as if his entire body was receiving some kind of electrotherapy treatment, with tiny currents coursing through him. Finally, they transformed into a warm current, flowing through him like a hot spring bath, a supreme comfort and relaxation. It was as if all the muscle aches and fatigue had vanished. In this supremely comfortable feeling, Wei Yi quickly fell into a deep sleep. He slept through the night, and when he woke in the morning, he felt stronger than ever. Last night's upgrade had brought about even greater changes to his body. Before, he had been a bit frail. Now, he was truly strong and powerful. He could now clearly feel his muscles brimming with strength. Every cell in his body teemed with vitality, as if possessing inexhaustible energy. It felt wonderful, a sense of clarity and comfort from the inside out. He felt that, if he swung his hammer again, a single blow would equal the effect of several hammers before. The information he had absorbed last night primarily concerned improvements to the external training methods of the Legion body refining art. These improved movements seemed more yoga-like and simplified. Wei Yi wondered if he should continue upgrading. Ultimately, if he only had to consistently do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every day, in 3 years, he would be bald, well, stronger. As Wei Yi left the room, the head security guard, Zhang Qingsang, approached with a nervous expression, inquiring if anything had been missing from the house the previous night. He honestly told Wei Yi about the guards falling asleep. While they didn't know how they'd fallen asleep, there was something strange about it. So they were worried that someone would take the opportunity to sneak into the Wei family and steal property. Wei Yi pretended to check the valuables in the room. Then he told Zhang Qingsang that nothing was missing from the house. Zhang Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. If something was really lost at home, then they really wouldn't have the face to work as security guards for the Wei family anymore. There was no way to explain to Jiuo Pixiu. Wei Zhu and Wei King also got up very early today, because Wei Tieshan was going to be escorted to the border to perform labor service today. They had to send Wei Tieshan off. After breakfast, Wei Zhu took Wei Yi, Wei King, and shit out of the county government office. Several guards followed them all the way to protect their safety. After waiting at the gate of the county government office for a long time, they saw 2 officers escorting Wei Tieshan out. But the family did not step forward immediately, but watched from a distance. After all, it was not easy to talk here, and it would not be too late to talk outside the city gate. He saw his wife, daughter, nephew, and apprentice Shitao. Wei Tieshan smiled with relief, and nodded slightly at them. He had missed them terribly after such a long separation. Seeing them all well, he was naturally happy. Wei Tieshan had lost a lot of weight, and looked a little haggard. Seeing this made Wei Yi feel a little sad. After all, his uncle's fate was unprovoked, otherwise, the family could have lived happily together. In a world like this, if one didn't want the fate of oneself and one's family to be in the hands of others, one had to keep working hard. One day, when one was rich, powerful, and capable, perhaps one wouldn't have to endure such hardships anymore. Wei Zushi and Wei King looked at Wei Tieshan with tears in their eyes. Although they knew this was the best possible outcome, they still felt sorry for him. Now, they had been apart for a year. The sadness of separation was inevitable. The family followed the two officials in silence, heading towards the city gate. The journey attracted a large crowd of onlookers, who pointed and talked. After Wei Tieshan was escorted away, Zenkang, who was in the county government office, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, this hot potato was handed over. The subsequent grievances would be left to them to resolve privately. Zenkang knew very well that the Liu family would definitely not let Wei Tieshan go, and would definitely take action along the way. But that would have nothing to do with him. Even if the prefect Li wanted to blame someone, he couldn't. He wouldn't have to be caught between two sides in the future. Old Zhu, is there any progress in the case of Cui Ming's disappearance? Zenkang asked Zhu Lei, the chief clerk beside him. Not yet. We are going to post missing person notices throughout the city today. By the way, sir, the housekeeper of Prince Jing's mansion came over last night and said that the princess had picked up a purse and asked us to help post a lost and found notice, Zhu Lei said. Hearing Zhu Lei's words, Zenkang frowned. At the moment, the murder of Liu Xiaohu and the disappearance of Cui Mingyi had already made him a little overwhelmed. How could they have the mood to post a lost and found notice? Young ladies from royal families are really ignorant of the suffering of the people. If they bother the county government with trivial matters on weekdays, how can they handle it? But she is the princess after all, so he still has to give her some face. Since it is a matter of the prince's mansion, then put up a notice on the bulletin board at the door. Zenkang said perfunctorily. Yes, sir. Zhu Lei nodded. He naturally didn't want to get involved in this matter. After all, compared with finding people and investigating murders, a lost purse is nothing. If the princess hadn't sent someone to give orders, they wouldn't bother to take care of such things. After Zhu Lei left, Zenkang sat on the armchair, stroking his chin, frowning. He always felt that Cui Ming's sudden disappearance was very unusual. This man had an unusual relationship with Liu Xiaohu, and they were like brothers. Maybe it was related to the previous case of Liu Xiaohu's murder. If so, what information did the murderer want from Liu Xiaohu and Cui Mingyi? These two. Could it be because of that incident? Zenkang's face changed, and he sat up straight. Thanks to Isn't It Good to Be Single? For the 2000 starting coins. Thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 38 Farewell. Outside the West City Gate, Wei Yi and his family followed the officials here. Wei Yi stopped the two officials, then stepped forward and stuffed a heavy bag of silver into them. Sir, this is a small token of my appreciation. The journey is long, and I hope you two officials will take good care of my second uncle, Wei Yi said seriously. The official weighed the purse, a smile playing on his lips, and then he said By the way, I'm a 9th rank swordsmith from the 10,000 Swords Pavilion. When you return, you can come to the 10,000 Swords Pavilion to find me. I will personally forge a pearl sword for you two officials, Wei Yi said. Oh, so you are a swordsmith. Nice to meet you. Don't worry, we will take good care of him, the official said with a smile. His attitude immediately improved. Thank you to officials. Wei Yi bowed. Will you allow us to talk? Wei Yi asked again. No problem, go ahead. The two tactfully stepped aside to make room for Wei Yi and the others. Dad. Wei King hugged Wei Tieshan, tears streaming down her face. Wei Zushi also hugged Wei Tieshan, tears streaming down her face. Wei Tieshan hugged his daughter and wife, his resolute face filled with emotion, even his eyes red. After all this time, this was the first time he'd been reunited with his entire family, and naturally, he was thrilled. He'd also missed his daughter, wife, and nephew terribly during this time. After hugging his wife and daughter, Wei Tieshan's gaze fell on the tearful Wei Yi. He patted Wei Yi's shoulder and said with a smile, "Your second uncle is proud of you." Wei Zushi had already sent someone to inform Wei Tieshan, who was in prison, about Wei Yi's achievement as a 9th grade swordsmith. Upon hearing the news, he too was deeply surprised, but even more thrilled and overjoyed. Wei Yi had fulfilled his family's dream, and their future would be filled with hope. Uncle, we will wait for you to come back. Then our family will never be separated again. Wei Yi said with a serious look. He believed that his uncle would come back safely to reunite with them. He also believed that when his uncle returned, he would definitely make a name for himself in King's House City and even in the Great Yan dynasty. From then on, the Wei family would no longer be controlled by others. Yes. Wei Tieshan smiled and nodded heavily. He looked at Shi Tao again and told him to learn the craft from Wei Yi. However, at this moment, a man got off a carriage parked not far away. He was dressed in gorgeous clothes, with a big, round nose on his fleshy face. This man was Liu Fugi. Behind him were two followers. The two of them exuded the aura of warriors, giving people an invisible sense of pressure. Family is such a sweet place, Liu Fugi said with a cold, piercing voice. Since you're so reluctant to part, why don't you go together? Liu Fugi's arrival completely shattered the warmth and joy of the family reunion. Wei Zushi and Wei King's faces darkened, a touch of fear in their hearts, their faces pale with anger at his words. But Wei Yi frowned, glaring at Liu Fugi coldly, and said, "You're the only one left in the Liu family now. Aren't you lonely? Why don't you join your son in the underground reunion?" Liu Fugi's words infuriated him, his face bulging with flesh, his eyes piercing with murderous intent. The attendants behind him also turned cold, stepping forward with an imposing presence. But the guards accompanying Wei Yi were not to be outdone, rushing forward and blocking their way. Although they knew the other party was an entry-level warrior, and that they were far inferior to him, they were at the city gate, and they were from the Dayan gang. The Liu family's guards didn't dare actually attack them, they were just bluffing. "Madam, Kinga, and Jia, just send them here. You can go back. It's time for me to go too," Wei Tieshan said hurriedly. He didn't want Wei Yi to clash with Liu Fugi and the others. He certainly didn't want him to say anything that would irritate his wife and daughter. So he immediately called for the officers to escort him on his way. "Dad, take care of yourself along the way. Tieshan, be careful." Wei Zushi and Wei King looked at Wei Tieshan reluctantly, tears welling up in their eyes again. "Go back." Wei Tieshan waved his hand and followed the officers forward. "Wei Tieshan, have a safe journey. It's a long journey, be careful." Liu Fugi suddenly shouted. The words were practically gritted out, sinister and filled with murderous intent. Wei Yi glared at Liu Fugi, but ignored him. He was now like a mad dog, arguing with him was pointless. But if he ever gained sufficient power, he would be the first person he would eliminate. Wei King and Wei Zushi were uneasy on the way back. Liu Fugi's appearance reignited their anxiety and worry. His last words, in particular, were filled with murderous intent and threats. They were no fools. They naturally guessed Liu Fugi would hire assassins to ambush them. Although Wei Yi had assured them that Du Jiang had arranged for warriors to secretly protect them, and that nothing would happen, the mother and daughter remained uneasy. They truly feared this farewell would be forever. Back home, Wei Yi resumed forging the sword, and everything seemed normal. But Wei Yi knew that his aunt and sister would likely spend the next few days in fear and anxiety. They wouldn't be completely reassured until word reached them that their second uncle had arrived safely. Wei Yi, however, wasn't entirely reassured either. Although Shamat had promised to keep Wei Tieshan safe, he feared any unexpected events or unforeseen circumstances. Time passed, and Wei Yi began to redistribute his time. Apart from necessary rest and meals, he spent half his time forging swords. The other half continued to hone his fitness and calligraphy skills. Of course, he still cooked lunch and dinner each day. His cooking proficiency was steadily improving, almost on par with his blacksmithing skills. As Wei Yi diligently practiced calligraphy, the ink and brush energy within his consciousness gradually grew into a mighty tree. And now, almost daily, golden specks of light would appear out of nowhere, merging into the leaves of the tree. Now, the leaf had completely turned golden. Wei Yi didn't know where these golden specks came from, or what the golden leaf was for, just as he wasn't sure of the purpose of the ink and brush energy. Everything awaited him. Perhaps new discoveries and insights would emerge as he advanced. Ever since Wei Tieshan was sent to the border, the atmosphere at home had become somewhat tense. His aunt and sister were either sullen or forced to smile. They were in a state of constant anxiety, and Wei Yi tried to comfort them, but to little avail. After all, they were truly terrified of hearing tragic news one day. Their hearts had already flown far away, wanting to see if Wei Tieshan was safe. Finally, after waiting for half a month, Du Yujiang brought good news to the Wei family. Chapter 39 The dust settles. Du Yujiang brought news to the Wei family about Wei Tieshan. The warrior he had sent to secretly protect him had returned. Wei Tieshan had arrived safely at the military camp 5 days prior, and was assigned to the armory to forge weapons. Du Yujiang's friends in the camp also messaged him, promising to help look after Wei Tieshan. Brother Tieshan's blacksmithing skills alone will put him in great use in the armory, and since he's in the camp, even the Liu family, no matter how wealthy, can't reach into the camp, Du Yujiang said seriously. His words finally put Wei Zushi and Wei Qing's long-suffering hearts at ease. Tears welled up in the mother and daughter's eyes, but a long-lost smile graced their lips. They had been genuinely worried for days that the Liu family would harm Wei Tieshan on his way. They feared Wei Tieshan would never return, and their hearts were filled with anguish. Now, at last, the storm had passed, and Wei Tieshan had survived another crisis. Thank you, shopkeeper Du. Your kindness will be forever remembered by our Wei family. Wei Zu said with immense gratitude. I didn't really help much. I can only say that good deeds are awarded by Brother Tieshan, and heaven is helping him. Du Yujiang said with a hint of meaning. Wei Yi was the only one present who could grasp the underlying meaning. No matter what, our Wei family will remember this favor. Wei Zu continued. My relationship with Wei Yi is nothing to write home about, Du Yujiang said with a smile. Auntie, go buy some more meat and vegetables, and have shopkeeper Du stay for lunch, Wei Yi suddenly said. Okay, Wei Zu nodded with a smile, and then left the hall with Wei Qing. Haha, you know what, I'm actually a little craving those dishes you cooked last time, Du Yujiang said with a smile, not bothering to be polite with Wei Yi. After all, his greed was honest. Haha, if you like it, come over anytime, and I'll make it for you, Wei Yi said with a smile. By the way, your aunt and sister were here just now. There's a detail I didn't mention. Your second uncle was actually nearly killed on the way. Du Yujiang's face suddenly grew serious, and he lowered his voice. He recounted the events in detail. At the time, a killer, at least a 7th rank expert, was attempting to ambush Wei Tieshan. The warriors he had hired were no match for him and nearly died. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a mysterious figure intervened, severely wounding the killer and forcing him to retreat. This saved Wei Tieshan's life and the lives of his hired warriors. As Du Yujiang spoke, he carefully observed Wei Yi's expression. Although Wei Yi's face showed surprise, he could tell that he seemed to know something, but he didn't question it. Everyone has their secrets. He simply wanted to confirm whether Wei Yi knew about this, nothing more. As for who that person was, and how Wei Yi knew him, he had no business asking, and didn't want to think such a thing could happen. Who is secretly helping my second uncle? Wei Yi asked, feigning surprise. After all, he couldn't tell anyone about the Shamat group. Not even his closest aunt and sister. And certainly not Du Yujiang. Perhaps it's a good relationship your second uncle once had, and it helped him out in this critical moment. So, good deeds pay off. Du Yujiang echoed Wei Yi's words. Yes, that's a possibility. Wei Yi nodded. He knew, with Du Yujiang's intelligence, he'd definitely be able to guess something. It's just that he was too clever to pry into his privacy. So, he tacitly agreed. Du Yujiang changed the subject, suddenly bringing up the latest happenings at the Wanjian Pavilion. Wei Yi's swords were still incredibly popular, with even wealthy individuals from nearby counties coming to reserve the Wei character swords. But Du Yujiang also told Wei Yi not to rush, and to continue forging the swords at his usual pace. At noon, Wei Yi cooked a few more dishes, and the family gathered together happily. The storm had finally passed, and the dust had settled. After the suffering, all that remained was joy and hope. Du Yujiang also shared in the joy. Compared to the joyful atmosphere at the Wei family, the Liu family residence was suffocatingly oppressive. Liu Fugi overturned the entire table of dishes, his face pale with anger. The flesh on his face bulged and trembled. He couldn't understand who was helping the Wei family. He had spent 5,000 taels of silver and hired a 7th rank expert, but he hadn't been able to kill Wei Tieshan. Now that the money was spent, Wei Tieshan was still alive, which made him extremely depressed. Of course, besides this depression, he was also extremely panicked. Anyone who could seriously injure a 7th rank killer must be at least 7th rank, or even higher. If such a master tried to kill him, he would definitely die. And he had already warned him once before. Thinking of this, Liu Fugi felt a chill on his back, and called out in panic, Liuan, Liuan. He had forgotten that his butler, Liuan, had long since disappeared. Wei Yi now focused only on his fitness skills for an hour in the morning. During the day, he worked on ironwork, and at night, he devoted himself to improving his calligraphy proficiency. Both his ironwork and cooking skills were now only 14 or 15% away from advancing to the next level, and his calligraphy skill was only about 30% away from advancing to the next level. By the time Wei Yi was ready for bed late that night, his calligraphy proficiency was only 26% away. It was a quiet night, and the guards were diligently guarding the Wei family. The city streets were deserted, save for patrols of the city guards. The city seemed quite restless recently, so patrols had been stepped up. The number of nighttime patrols had also increased significantly. The sun rose, heralding a new day. Wei Yi naturally awoke at first light. During this time, he'd been eating healthy foods and practicing his fitness skills. His overall condition had never been better. Furthermore, since his fitness skills reached the first level, his body had transformed. No matter how tired he was during the day, or 3-hour night's sleep was more than sufficient, and the quality of his sleep was exceptional. Upon waking, he felt refreshed and relaxed. He loved that feeling. After all, he'd never experienced that feeling in his previous life. He'd struggled to fall asleep, suffering from insomnia and frequent dreams. Even after 8 or 9 hours of sleep, his brain would still feel groggy. His body felt like it was weighed down by lead. Scrambling out of bed, he felt as if all his energy from the day had been drained. Now, he felt like that young man, with endless strength and energy. Wei Yi woke up, and, as usual, spent an hour practicing his fitness skills. His aunt had just finished making breakfast, so he washed off his sweaty head, and went to eat. After breakfast, Wei Yi and Shitao began forging iron together. During this time, Wei Yi spent his spare time, after meals, teaching Shitao the theoretical aspects of blacksmithing. He also meticulously coached Shitao during his regular forging sessions. Shitao was incredibly talented and passionate about blacksmithing, and his uncle had also taught him a great deal before. So, when Wei Yi taught him, it felt like he understood everything instantly, and it came naturally. Furthermore, though he was only 12 years old, he possessed immense strength. The force he swung his hammer with was even greater than Wei Yi's before. Under Wei Yi's meticulous instruction, Shitao made rapid progress, and was now capable of forging a decent ordinary sword. Wei Yi felt that one day, he might be able to train a 9th grade swordsmith, the youngest of the youngest. Chapter 40 Lansheng Wine. Ding ding dang dang. The noisy sound of iron hammering echoed throughout the courtyard. But to Wei Zushi, this sound was so beautiful. It was like the smoke curling up from the chimney at dusk and the aroma of food wafting from the kitchen. It was like the lamp lit at night. It was like the laughter of children playing in bed, before going to bed. It always makes people feel at ease and warm. In a trance, it was as if Wei Tieshan was still at home. Now, this family was full of hope and vitality again. Since learning that Wei Tieshan had arrived safely in the military camp, Wei Zushi's mood had brightened. She now had something to look forward to every day. Although a year is long, there is always something to look forward to. The day of joining the reunion will come. Wei Zushi and Wei King were both busy in the shop. Suddenly, 3 figures walked in. The leader was dressed in brocade, with phoenix eyes and a handsome face, but with an arrogant look on his face. Behind him were 2 men who looked like attendants. All 3 wore swords at their waists, and the leader's sword bore the inscribed Wei Wei shaped sword. The distinctive hilt spoke for itself. Had Jiuo Pixiu been present, he would have instantly recognized one's eye. "Excuse me, sir," Wei Zhu asked with a smile. She knew her shop had nothing worthy of this wealthy young man. And since he was wearing the inscribed Wei sword, Wei Zhu suspected he was likely looking for Wei Yi. Just like young Master Jiuo, who frequently visited, they were all attracted by his reputation. One's eyes arrogant gaze casually scanned the shop before suddenly resting on Wei King. Seeing her delicate and elegant face, his eyes lit up. He unabashedly and impolitely surveyed her slender figure and beautiful features. The lustful gaze made Wei King uncomfortable, and she pretended to tidy up the shelves before turning away. Wei Yi's brows immediately furrowed as she stepped forward, blocking his view. Her eyes widened as she asked coldly, "What do you want? Is Wei Yi here?" One's eye averted his gaze and asked in a cold voice, "What do you want from him?" "Of course I want to buy a sword from him. He's in the backyard, right?" One's eye followed the sound of ironwork and walked to the back door of the shop. He glanced at the smithy in the yard. "If you want to buy a sword, you can go to the Wanjian Pavilion." Before Wei Yi could finish her words, One's eye and his entourage entered the yard. They walked straight to the smithy and asked in a haughty voice, "Who is Wei Yi? What do you want?" Wei Yi looked at One's eye and frowned. The man's contempt was written all over his face, making him feel uncomfortable. However, his eyes also caught the sword at One's eye's waist, the precious sword with the inscription Wei on it, which he had forged himself. "Are you Wei Yi? I want to buy a sword with a Wei character on it. How long will it take to forge?" One's eye asked, looking at Wei Yi with a commanding gaze. He didn't look like someone buying a sword, but rather a leader giving orders to a subordinate. "If you want to buy a sword, go to Wanjian Pavilion to reserve it. The specific time can be confirmed with them," Wei Yi said sternly. "I came to you because I don't want to buy it there. I'm in a hurry to give it to someone, so if you can forge a sword for me first, I'll pay you 100 taels of silver directly. That way, you don't have to split the bill with Wanjian Pavilion." "Why not?" One's eye spoke with the same condescending air. Wei Yi frowned. "Are you telling me what to do?" He disliked the other person's bossy demeanor. He had no intention of discussing things with him. Instead, he was giving orders. Besides, did he look like someone who needed those 20 taels of silver? He could sell the sword privately. But if someone, like Guo Pixiu, was sincere and genuinely wanted to make friends with him, he would be a good friend. Perhaps he'd even consider making an exception for him. But this guy before him, Wei Yi just wanted to say, "Who the hell are you?" "Sorry, I'm working with the Wanjian Pavilion, so I can't break the rules. If you want to buy a sword, go to the Wanjian Pavilion and make a reservation," Wei Yi said in a deep voice. He then ignored One's eye and continued hammering away at the sword. "I'm telling you, how stubborn you are. I'm buying from you, so you can make more money. Don't you understand?" One's eye snapped, his face filled with displeasure. Wei Yi ignored him and continued working on his ironwork. Seeing Wei Yi's disregard, One's eye's face turned sullen, and he glared at Wei Yi. He then flung his sleeves and turned away, cursing, "Damn it, a lousy blacksmith, what's up with you?" After leaving the Wei residence, One's eye's face was extremely gloomy. He was naturally deeply upset at being disrespected by Wei Yi. In this city, everyone had to give young Master Wan some respect. A mere blacksmith, yet he acted so arrogantly in front of him. How outrageous. He took a few steps, then suddenly stopped, and turned to look at the Wei family's banner, his eyes flashing with coldness. That old fellow, Liu Fugi, is truly useless. He couldn't even avenge his son's murder. No wonder my father said the Liu family's fortune would eventually belong to our Wan family. One's eye thought to himself. The Wan family was a ruthless bunch, utterly ruthless in their pursuit of their enemies. Those who dared to oppose the Wan family back then were probably buried in their graves by now. As he thought of this, One's eye's gaze suddenly fell upon the Xiangmenlao banner at the street corner. If the Meng family hadn't had the Chaoshan County Magistrate, this last Xiangmenlao would probably no longer exist. And the Meng family's Lansheng wine recipe and Meng Shulian must have fallen into the hands of the Wan family. Whenever he thought of these two things, One's eye felt an unbearable itch. Meng Shulian's beauty was self-evident. Even his father, Wan Yunchang, had wanted her as a concubine. And he too had longed to enjoy her beauty and indulge in her pleasures. As for the Lansheng wine brewing recipe, it was something the Wan family had longed for. Back then, the Meng family had suddenly risen to prominence thanks to Lansheng wine, opening 8 or 9 restaurants and taverns across Qingzhou City. Business was booming, practically stealing the majority of the Wan family's market share, even eclipsing their own Wanhan wine. If it weren't for his father's manipulation, the liquor business in Kingshao City would have been completely dominated by the Mengs by now. However, if the Wan family obtained the Lansheng wine brewing recipe, it would be a powerful addition. It would surely double their revenue and even allow them to expand into other cities. The Meng family can't hold out much longer. Wan's ice lips curled into a sinister grin. He had heard from his father that Meng Shulian's uncle, the county magistrate of Chaoshan County, was gravely ill and nearing death. Without this person's protection, the Wan family would no longer have anything to fear. This time, he was determined to obtain the recipe for Meng Jialan's raw wine, as well as Meng Shulian. Come on, let's go to Xiangmen Lao for a chat, Wan Zai suddenly said with a sneer. He then led 2 followers towards Xiangmen Lao. He had just angered Wei Yi, and he needed to vent his anger with Meng Shulian. Chapter 41 Don't offend the villain. Who was that guy just now? He's such a pretentious person. Aren't all those rich young men like that? High-minded and arrogant. I don't think that Mr. Jiuo is like that. After Wan Zai left, Hulin and Sun Fu couldn't help but discuss a few words. Just then, the head of the security guards, Zhang Qingsang, approached. He looked at Wei Yi sternly and asked, "Boss, do you recognize that guy just now?" "No, what's the matter?" Wei Yi said calmly. "That guy is Wan Yinchang's son, Wan Zai. He's not very broad-minded. You didn't give him face just now. I'm sure he'll cause you trouble in the future, but don't worry, boss. With our day and gang here, no one in Kingshao City dares to touch you." So he's from the Wan family? No wonder he's so arrogant. Wei Yi frowned slightly. He knew the name Wan Yinchang. The Wan family was a wealthy merchant family in the city. They were also the head of several guilds in Kingshao. He was the old man who had previously wanted to take Wei King as a concubine. If I had known he was from their family, I should have kicked him out right away, Wei Yi thought to himself. He thought that guy was actually wearing the Wei Yi sword he forged. It felt like an insult to his sword. He wanted to take the sword back and throw 100 taels of silver in his face. Tell him, I won't sell you my sword. But that was all he thought. After all, it wasn't right to argue with an idiot. It wasn't right to go against money either. Towards evening, Zhang Xingga arrived at the Wei residence. He had come at the appointed time to pick up Wei Yi's newly forged Wei sword. A few days earlier, Wei Yi had paid off the money Wei Tieshan owed Wang Shaoyin and Zhang Xingga, and the contract had been taken back and destroyed. He had already earned nearly 2,000 taels of silver during that time, so he didn't need that little bit of money. It was only natural to pay back a debt, and paying it off quickly would put a burden to rest. That evening, Wei Yi cooked 3 more healthy dishes. A dish of steamed pork ribs with glutinous rice, a dish of tofu with crab roe, and a dish of lamb stew with angelica and astragalus. The aroma lingered in the courtyard, making the guards on duty salivate. My dream used to be to spend a night with Miss Liu Ru from Hongxiu Zhao. Now I have another dream, to enjoy a meal cooked by the master. Hey, can you smell it? The master seems to have made something new today. I haven't smelled it before. Yeah, it smells like crab. You two have really good noses. You can even smell that. Of course, get out of here. Who are you calling a dog? The guards stood not far from the kitchen, sniffing and joking with each other. Every day, smelling the master's cooking was their greatest pleasure. Even if they couldn't eat it, it was nice to satisfy their noses. It was just like the sight of the courtesans at Hongxiu Zhao. After dinner, Wei Yi burped and returned to his room. During this period, Wei Yi's lifespan increased dramatically, now reaching nearly 130 days, thanks to his daily delicacies. This was certainly due to his fitness training. Furthermore, Wei Yi noticed that his aunt and sister had become noticeably plumper. The food had indeed been well fed, but in Wei Yi's opinion, a little extra weight for his sister was just right. She had been a bit too skinny before, but now, looking thin yet feeling plump, was just the right amount. Returning to his room, Wei Yi continued to work on his calligraphy proficiency. He was now only 18% away from advancing. As for his blacksmithing and cooking skills, he should be able to successfully advance to the next level in 2 or 3 days. A life full of anticipation is wonderful, Wei Yi thought to himself. He picked up his brush and began writing. He had discovered some patterns during this time. While calligraphy proficiency increased with the number of strokes, the growth of the brush and ink energy wasn't related to the number of strokes used. Instead, it was related to the content of the writing. Simply writing haphazardly would yield far less progress than composing poetry, songs, or essays. The gap was still quite large, but he was already writing poetry and songs until he was practically sick. So lately, he'd been writing some of his favorite classics from his past life. Ever since he'd acquired the power of pen and ink, Wei Yi had noticed his memory improving. His mind had become clearer, and even many of his memories of his past life had become more vivid. Things he'd forgotten before were slowly coming back to him. Whereas in his past life, he could only recall the general outlines of classics and novels. Now he could recall many details. Even if he couldn't replicate them completely, he could still write something 70% to 80% accurate. This sparked the idea of copying books. Now that he had money, he didn't have to worry about paper. Since he was writing anyway, why not leave behind his writing brush and copy some of the interesting literary works from his past life? It would add some cultural heritage to this world. It would also provide his sister with some leisure reading material. Immersed in his writing, Wei Yi had lost track of time. Before he knew it, it was already midnight. A sudden breeze picked up outside, rattling the window slightly, interrupting Wei Yi's thoughts on copying. At the same time, the night watchman's call, beating the gong, could be heard faintly over the wind. It's midnight already. Time flies. Wei Yi put down his brush and stretched his wrist and shoulders slightly. In fact, when he heard the window creak, he thought it was that Shamat. The guy had asked him to forge 5 swords within 10 days. But it had been 2 weeks, and he still hadn't come to collect them. He didn't know what he'd been up to. Wei Yi was worried something had happened to him. Moreover, the city's patrols had increased significantly recently, and it seemed he had something to do with it. He wondered what big thing the guy had done. Perhaps he hadn't been able to show up recently, so he hadn't come to collect the swords yet. Wei Yi thought to himself. He was actually very worried about him. After all, having such a master protecting him was reassuring. And after Wei Tieshan's incident, Wei Yi was grateful for the help of this guy. The autumn wind blew all night, blowing down many dead leaves. The next morning, Wei Yi woke to a feeling of even greater chill and desolation. As usual, he first worked on his fitness skills, then had breakfast, and began forging iron. He had expected another ordinary day. Unexpectedly, at 9 AM, a group claiming to be from the Ironware Guild suddenly arrived. Led by the guild's leader, they claimed the Wei family's ironware shop was operating illegally and ordered it to close immediately, or else the county government would report it and seal it off. Wei Yi knew something about guilds. Commerce flourished in the Great Yan dynasty, much like the Northern Song dynasty before him. Each trade had its own guild, such as the rice trade, the wine trade, the cloth trade, and the food trade. These trades were somewhat similar to modern industry associations, but their power was incomparable. The Wei family's shop, originally selling everyday ironware like sickles, hoes, kitchen knives, and scissors, belonged to the Ironware Guild. Guilds in the Great Yan dynasty served as a crucial link between merchants and government officials. In some respects, these guilds even possessed powers comparable to those of the current Bureau of Industry and Commerce. The heads of each guild, also known as Hangtao, Hangshao, or Hangleo, served as the guild's chief representatives in negotiations with the government. While fundamentally a guild leader was still a merchant, not an official, and held no official power, their frequent liaisons between merchants and the government gave them a certain degree of clerk status. Their influence sometimes surpassed that of government officials, making them the true local bosses of their respective industries. Each guild also had its own charter and regulations. While not legal in nature, they exerted a strong degree of control over its members. Their enforcement power was equal to, and even surpassed, that of government laws. It could be said that, if you were a businessman and offended the government, you might still have a chance of survival. However, if you truly offended the guild leader, your survival might be completely ruined. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Simultaneous Advancement, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Master, how has our business violated any regulations? Wei Yi asked, somewhat dissatisfied. According to the guild's rules, iron is a masculine tool, and women are feminine. If you touch iron, it will become soft. Therefore, the guild's rules prohibit women from operating an iron shop. A short, stocky, middle-aged man with dark skin and an ugly face said sternly. His name was Marta, and he was the head of the King's House City Ironware Guild. I'm not the owner, nor do I run the business. I just help look after the shop. Wei Yi wanted to explain, but was interrupted by Marta. Also, your Wei Tieshan broke the law, and according to the rules, those who break the law can't run the business. Now the owner of our shop is Wei Yi, a swordsmith. Isn't this also against the rules? Wei Yi asked again. The original guild registered owner of your ironware shop was Wei Tieshan. If Wei Yi wants to open a shop, he needs to re-register with the guild and obtain approval. Wei Yi hasn't registered with the guild, nor joined our organization, so how could he become the owner? Martai's voice grew even colder. Then can't we just go and re-register? The city's current limit for ironware shops has been reached, and several are waiting in line to join the guild. If Wei Yi wants to reopen his shop, he needs to wait in line until a spot becomes available. Marta added. Wei Yi understood from the side. These people were here to cause trouble, determined to close their shop. They hadn't come for so long, since second uncle's accident, so their sudden arrival couldn't be accidental. Someone must be behind this. Wei Yi knew instantly who it was. Zhang King-san was right. This guy was truly narrow-minded. He hadn't given him face yesterday, and now he's sending people to disgust him. Wei Yi knew the Wan family was powerful, and Wan Yinchang was the head of multiple guilds in the city. He presumably believed Martai was acting on Wanzai's orders to cause trouble. While the current income from the iron workshop was insignificant to Wei Yi, being forced to close was different from closing it voluntarily. Wanzai was just deliberately trying to disgust him and show off. He truly preferred to offend a nobleman, rather than a villain. Aunt, it's better to close the iron workshop. It will make life easier for you and Kinga in the future, Wei Yi said. Wei Yi nodded. She could see that these people were deliberately targeting their family. However, these guild leaders were local tyrants, backed by the county government. If they wanted you to close down, there was nothing they could do. However, their family didn't need to rely on the iron workshop for income. As a swordsmith, they had no control over Wei Yi's sword forging. In fact, Wei Yi had already earned more than enough. She still ran the ironware shop simply because it was Wei Tieshan's former business. It was something they had built together when they first arrived in King's House City. Keeping it was a cherished memory. Shitao, go get your uncle Hu and Uncle Sun to come over and help collect these ironware and take them back to the iron smelting process, Wei Yi said, patting Shitao on the shoulder. Then, under the supervision of Martai and the others, they took down the shop's signboards and banners. Seeing the signs and banners taken down, Wei Yi felt a sense of reluctance and sadness. This place held so many beautiful memories for her family. Now, all was in the past. It was time to say goodbye to the past. This damned world. Aunt, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. One day, our Wei family ironware shop will be on Main Street. Wei Yi consoled him. Although he felt unhappy, he wasn't anxious. There was still a long way to go. As the saying goes, even Zuanfu could fear the younger generation, and a man should not look down on the young. When the great rock soars into the sky with the wind, it soars up to 90,000 miles. To put it simply, 30 years on the east side of the river, 30 years on the west side of the river. Don't despise the young and poor. It's also said that those who do too much evil will eventually perish. Sooner or later, the one family will be liquidated. The one most distressed by the closure of the iron workshop wasn't the Wei Zhu family, but Ulin and Sunfu. Their income was currently tied to the iron workshop's sales, and now that the shop was closed, their income would undoubtedly be significantly reduced. Wei Yi was naturally aware of this. So, after returning to the courtyard, Wei Yi summoned Sun Fu and Hulin to the hall and reassured them, "Don't worry, my two uncles. Although the iron workshop is closed, I will continue to pay you dividends, based on the shop's average sales. In addition, I'll give you a 10% increase on your basic wages." Wei Yi was now making a lot of money forging swords, and since he could forge them himself, Hulin and Sun Fu could help with many of the steps. Therefore, Wei Yi wasn't stingy with their wages. After all, he would make even more money in the future. Upon hearing Wei Yi's words, Hulin and Sun Fu were overjoyed and excited. They immediately bowed and said excitedly, "Thank you, boss. Thank you, boss. You've been so kind to us. We really don't know how to thank you enough. Don't worry, you'll be making a lot of money with me," Wei Yi said with a smile. "Let's go and continue our ironwork." That one's eye is so damn vindictive. I just said something yesterday, and today he's instigating the guild members to come and cause trouble. As Wei Yi walked out of the hall, he heard several guards talking indignantly. Isn't that the case with the Wan family? Otherwise, how could the Meng family end up in its current situation? Yes, Xiangmen Lao was the most famous restaurant in our King's House City back then. Their Lansheng wine is the best wine I have ever tasted, but now I can't even drink it. I can only drink the Wan family's undrinkable Wanhan wine. That's right. The Meng family shopkeeper was also a well-known philanthropist back then. Whenever there were disasters and victims entering King's House City, their family would provide porridge to help them, and even donate money and clothes. Well, when my father and I were in trouble and came to King's House City, we also received the favor of the Meng family. The old shopkeeper of the Meng family was indeed a good man. Alas, good people are bullied, and good people don't get good rewards. This damn world. The Meng family is not the only merchant harmed by the Wan family. Yes, the Wan family colluded with County Magistrate Zheng to make all walks of life in King's House City a mess. Now it is dominated by unscrupulous businessmen. Listening to the discussions of the guards, Wei Yi also felt sympathetic. To survive in such a world, it doesn't mean that you can be safe if you don't cause trouble. The tree wants to be still, but the wind does not stop. Without power and influence, you will encounter obstacles at every step and be controlled by others. Wei Yi didn't speak. He returned to the anvil again, condensed all his dissatisfaction into the hammer in his hand, and hammered the iron heavily. He believed that it would not be long before Wan's eye would regret his arrogance and shamelessness. Sooner or later, the Liu family and the Wan family would disappear from King's House City forever. After the turmoil of the iron shop closing, life seemed to have returned to peace. Wei Yi had a regular schedule every day and regularly improved the proficiency of various skills. After 3 days of hard work, he finally mastered the blacksmithing and cooking skills and met the promotion conditions at the same time. Name: Wei Yi. Root aptitude, very poor lifespan. 42 years, plus 136 days. Blacksmithing skill, level 2, upgradable. Cooking skill, level 3, upgradable. Writing skill, level 3, 7% proficiency away from upgrade. Drawing skill, level 2, 85%. Proficiency away from upgrade. Sculpting skill, level 1, 56% proficiency away from upgrade. Fitness skill, level 1, 31% proficiency away from upgrade. Thanks for your monthly votes. Chapter 43, Advanced, Refining. Wei Yi didn't rush to upgrade during the day. Instead, he waited until the dead of night, just as he was in bed, when, on a whim, he upgraded both skills simultaneously. A familiar feeling washed over him again, countless pieces of information surfacing from the depths of his mind, then merging into his memory. Every cell in his body seemed to be receiving information, as if etched into his DNA. The memories of his brain and body formed a perfect unity. Unconsciously, Wei Yi fell into a deep sleep, enveloped in that magical feeling. That night, Wei Yi dreamed of decades of time. He had accumulated countless experiences in blacksmithing and cooking. Through countless practices, he had honed and mastered exquisite and profound skills. This gave him a new understanding of cooking and blacksmithing, allowing him to enter a new realm. Looking back now, his previous forging and heat treatment techniques seemed rudimentary and crude. It was like learning addition and subtraction from elementary school after becoming a high school nerd. Things that once seemed impossible now offered dozens of ways to accomplish them. In addition to forging and heat treating metals, he also mastered the creation of various alloys with varying properties. Many of these alloys weren't even available on Earth in his previous life. These alloys were created by merging ores and materials unique to this world. These alloys' properties could surpass the limits of steel, easily achieving properties such as hardness, strength, and toughness that steel couldn't achieve. In a sense, this also significantly reduced the number of steps required to forge a sword. Furthermore, this upgrade also granted Wei Yi access to a martial art known as 1000 Hammers and 100 Refinements. This technique involves the ultimate utilization of strength and sustained explosive power. By maximizing internal strength and explosive power, Wei Yi unleashes high-frequency hammering. He can swing dozens or even hundreds of times in a short period of time. With sufficient reserves, he can even sustain high-frequency hammering for thousands, tens of thousands, or even more. Each hammer blow amplifies the force of the previous one, continuously increasing the attack power. This martial art also complements his blacksmithing skills. This high-speed, high-frequency hammering is also a key skill in creating alloys. It's somewhat similar to the mechanical alloying process of his previous life, but also differs. After his cooking skill reached the 4th level, Wei Yi possessed the culinary skills of a top chef. He had mastered the specialties of every major cuisine in the world. He possessed countless cooking methods, including dozens of secret sauce recipes. He could apply these techniques to create new dishes and flavors. These secret sauces, in particular, were the soul of a dish and the finishing touch. Even without cooking himself, a simple tutorial from an experienced chef on how to use the sauces would elevate his dishes to a rich, captivating flavor. Furthermore, he had also acquired a dietary therapy practice called using, like to replenish like. This practice was somewhat similar to a form of internal cultivation. Through meditation and qigong, one could maximize the absorption and refinement of food's essence, achieving the effect of using, like to replenish like, even improving physical fitness, and enhancing one's physique and bone strength. Furthermore, because this practice was directly integrated through the system, it could be easily controlled, like natural instinct. Of course, Wei Yi had also made significant improvements in knife skills, heat control, and food carving. His improved food carving skills automatically advanced Wei Yi's carving skills to the 2nd level. As for knife skills, he even acquired a martial art known as Peoding's ox dissection. This is a technique that reaches the pinnacle of knife skills, a skill that borders on the Dao. The blade strikes with a fluid, unparalleled precision, targeting weak points, severing flesh and bone with every stroke. Finally, a method to improve my physique. Wei Yi rejoiced. This also gave him a glimpse into the possibilities of his future martial arts and Daoist cultivation. Shape replenishes form. I'm really going further down the foodie path. Wei Yi chuckled to himself. However, after advancing his blacksmithing skills to the 3rd level, Wei Yi felt that his skill level had improved quite a bit. Have I surpassed the level of a 7th grade swordsmith? Wei Yi wondered. He had previously heard Du Jiang talk about 7th grade and 5th grade swordsmiths. 7th grade swordsmiths still use various heat treatment methods to achieve the ultimate performance of steel. 5th grade swordsmiths, on the other hand, no longer use just iron. Wei Yi speculates that they fuse multiple materials to create alloys, thereby enhancing the sword's performance. This is why Wei Yi feels as if his upgrade has skipped a level and reached the level of a 5th grade swordsmith. However, he's not entirely certain. He needs to verify everything. I'll go to the 10,000 Swords Pavilion this afternoon and ask shopkeeper Du in detail about the evaluation criteria for 7th and 5th grade swordsmiths. With this in mind, Wei Yi quickly got up and dressed. After a brief warm-up, he began his daily fitness routine. After breakfast, Wei Yi resumed his daily blacksmithing. While his blacksmithing skills have greatly improved, allowing him to forge swords of even greater performance, he can also continue forging dual swords. Furthermore, with his increased abilities and realm, forging dual swords is now a breeze. There are definitely simpler and more efficient forging methods. Therefore, forging a Wei sword of the same quality could now save considerable effort and time. This method could even be taught to Shitao. With repeated practice, Shitao could forge his own swords of the same quality. Brother, why is the heat treatment process different today? Shitao was surprised to see the significant change in Wei Yi's heat treatment of the swords. The term heat treatment, which Wei Yi had taught Shitao, had become a technical term. Well, this is my latest method, and it's much simpler. Follow me and I'll explain the principles in detail later, Wei Yi said. Okay. Shitao nodded earnestly. He then followed Wei Yi throughout the process, observing and learning intently. By noon, Wei Yi had finished several swords. He left the subsequent polishing and hilt installation to Hulin, Sun Fu, and others. He then went to the kitchen to cook. After lunch, Wei Yi, accompanied by 2 guards, prepared to go to the 10,000 Swords Pavilion. But he had barely walked out of his house when he saw Xiangman Lao at the corner of the street. A crowd had gathered in front of the door, creating a commotion. Then, a large group of Yamen runners approached, shouting and yelling, ordering the crowd to disperse. Then, with a stern expression, they entered Xiangman Lao. What happened at Xiangman Lao? Wei Yi's brows furrowed slightly, a bad feeling welling up in his chest. The 2 guards behind him exchanged a solemn glance. P.S. There may have been a lot of plot foreshadowing lately, primarily to thoroughly unfold the map of King's House City, the various factions, and the various characters. Please bear with me if there are any shortcomings. I also hope you'll be patient with the transition. The protagonist is about to take off. Chapter 44. The Meng family falls into trouble, seeking follow-up reading. Wei Yi arrived at Xiangman Lao with 2 guards. At the entrance, the crowd was buzzing with discussion and pointing. Wei Yi had a rough idea of what had happened. Not long ago, someone had died of poisoning while dining at Xiangman Lao. 5 people at the table had died instantly. The county government had received a report and was investigating. They had already sealed the entrance to Xiangman Lao, barring anyone else. Therefore, Wei Yi was unable to enter and could only join the crowd at the entrance. What could have poisoned people to death? I heard they ate poisonous mushrooms. There were poisonous mushrooms in the wild delicacies used in Xiangman Lao, and 5 people died on the spot. Poisonous mushrooms, how could they be so careless? No, according to the guild regulations, the city's restaurants have prescribed channels for purchasing ingredients, and they cannot buy them privately. How could they buy poisonous mushrooms? Yeah, this is too strange. Well, 9 out of 10 times someone tampered with the food. This is nothing new. Now that people have died from eating the food, shopkeeper Meng cannot be free from responsibility. That depends on the results of the investigation. If they can't find out who did it, the chef who cooked it must bear the main responsibility, and he might even be sentenced to death by hanging. That's so serious. Maybe the person who purchased the food and the Wild Delicacies Guild will also be implicated. But the Meng family restaurant will definitely not be able to continue operating. After something like this, the guild will definitely remove them, and shopkeeper Meng may have to face huge compensation. Alas, the Meng family is in such a plight. Now they can't even keep their restaurant. Hey, I heard manager Meng's uncle passed away, so the Meng family's last umbrella of protection is gone. No wonder. I was wondering why something so sudden had happened. Alas, this world. The Meng family is completely finished this time. Yeah, they'll never get to eat Xiangman Lao's roast chicken again. The crowd was talking, and Wei Yi, from the side, had a pretty good understanding of what was going on. He knew without a doubt that this was most likely linked to the Wan family. Previously, the Wan family feared Meng Shulian's uncle, the county magistrate, after all, a powerful official. Now that Meng Shulian's uncle was gone, the Wan family had no more fear and began to exterminate the Meng family. How despicable. However, he had just witnessed Wan's ice despicable tactics a few days ago, so he didn't find it surprising. The Meng family couldn't escape this disaster. The Wan family and county magistrate Zheng were already in cahoots. The county Yamen's investigation is likely to have a very negative impact on the Meng family. Just as everyone around them has said, the Meng family's Xiangman Lao will undoubtedly close completely, and they will face huge compensation. Whether Meng Shulian will be implicated and convicted remains uncertain. One can only say that this world is too dark. After a long while, the gates of Xiangman Lao opened again. Get out of the way. The Yamen runners shouted, forcing the crowd to disperse. Soon, several Yamen runners emerged from the gate, escorting the restaurant's inhabitants. Fear filled their faces. Meng Shulian walked in front, her face pale, her head slightly lowered, her brow furrowed in anger. Manager Meng. Wei Yi suddenly called out, drawing the attention of everyone around. Meng Shulian glanced at Wei Yi, her demise brightening slightly, but her expression was extremely complex. Manager Meng, don't worry. Heaven sees, and retribution is clear. Wei Yi said with a firm, resolute gaze. Naturally, he wouldn't stand idly by this time. The last time the Wei family was in trouble, Meng Shulian had provided significant assistance. As the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. When the Wei family was most desperate for money, Meng Shulian had even offered them 50 taels of silver. You have to remember, in this world, even between close brothers, 50 taels of silver is a hefty sum requiring written agreement. Yet, Meng Shulian hadn't even mentioned when the Wei family would repay. Furthermore, the Meng family wasn't well off at the time. 50 taels was probably all they could afford. Someone had given their all to help you, and Wei Yi naturally couldn't forget that favor. Now that the Meng family was in trouble, he couldn't stand idly by. However, Wei Yi also knew he couldn't rush things. He needed to wait and see what the county government and the Wan family did before deciding how to help them. However, in the meantime, he still had to make arrangements. He also had to establish connections, at least to ensure Meng Shulian's safety. That old pervert from the Wan family was capable of anything. Hearing Wei Yi's words, Meng Shulian's face regained some color. She looked at Wei Yi and nodded. After Meng Shulian and the others were escorted away, several other Yamen runners carried the deceased's body away. The last 2 runners to leave sealed Xiangmen Lao. After all the runners had left, the crowd slowly dispersed. Wei Yi also arrived at Wanjian Pavilion with 2 guards. At the entrance, he paused, took out his purse, handed it to the 2 men, and said, "You 2 go to the county government office first and make arrangements. Ask them to help take care of Manager Meng." "Yes, boss, don't worry," the 2 men said solemnly. They could also see that Wei Yi had a close relationship with Manager Meng. He wanted to help the Meng family. So, after leaving Wanjian Pavilion, the 2 men went to the county government office first, made arrangements, and gathered information. However, after leaving the county office, they did not return to Wanjian Pavilion, but went directly to the Guo family's residence and reported the matter to Guo Pixiu. "Very good, you 2 are very capable. I've got this figured out. Go back and tell Wei Yi and reassure him," Guo Pixiu said with a smile. It wasn't that he was gloating, but rather that he had always wanted to befriend Wei Yi. Now that he had such a great opportunity to show off, he naturally couldn't miss it. Most importantly, he could both curry favor with Wei Yi and oppose Wan's Eye at the same time, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. "You 2 should return to Wanjian Pavilion first. I'll go to the county government office to see my uncle later," Guo Pixiu said. His uncle was the chief clerk, the second in command of the county government. After Wei Yi arrived at Wanjian Pavilion, he went over the details and differences between the 7th grade and 5th grade swordsmith exams with Du Yujiang. Du Yujiang also explained the details to him. The 7th grade swordsmith exam was actually not much different from the 9th grade exam, with similar content and tests. There was also a corresponding sword testing rod to test the sword's ultimate performance. However, the 5th grade swordsmith exam was different. Although swordsmiths also forge their swords in a closed environment, the entire process is off limits to others. Furthermore, the performance testing for the swords is significantly different. Beyond some basic testing, the performance requirements for 5-bead swords differ from those for 1 and 3-bead swords in 2 key areas. First, the sword's stability under varying extreme conditions. For example, the sword is exposed to high temperatures or cold temperatures for extended periods, and then its performance is tested to determine if it meets the required stability standards. Second, the resistance of the warrior's blood and ki. Once a warrior reaches the 7th rank, they can channel their blood and ki into the sword, enhancing its performance. It can even suppress evil spirits and suppress ghosts. However, prolonged infusion of a warrior's blood and ki can alter the internal structure of the steel sword, making it brittle and ultimately useless. A key characteristic of a 5-bead sword is its resistance to the infusion of a warrior's blood and ki. Even with prolonged infusion, the sword's performance remains remarkably stable. Chapter 45, The General Outfit, Seeking Follow-Up Reading. Listening to Du Jiang's words, Wei Yi felt more and more certain that after this upgrade, he might actually reach the level of a 5th grade swordsmith. Wei Yi, why are you suddenly asking me all this today? Have you made another breakthrough in your skills? Du Jiang looked at Wei Yi expectantly. After all, he had come all the way here today to ask him about this, so there must be a reason. Yes, I have indeed made a breakthrough. I would like to take the test again, Wei Yi said truthfully. Upon hearing the definitive answer, Du Jiang couldn't help but look surprised. Although he had just suspected it, Wei Yi's words still surprised him. Knowing Wei Yi well, he knew that for him to say this, he must have a certain degree of confidence. Considering that he had only been a 9th grade swordsmith for less than a month, and now he had made further progress, hoping to reach the 7th grade, becoming a 7th grade swordsmith like himself. A genius is a genius indeed. Moreover, Wei Yi's talent for swordsmithing was beyond description. Even the geniuses he knew had never improved so rapidly, and that was without any guidance. Completely through his own exploration and research. This was quite astonishing. You truly are incredibly gifted at swordsmithing. You're on the verge of reaching the 7th rank so quickly. If I had half your talent, I wouldn't have been stuck at the 7th rank for so many years. Du Jiang exclaimed. Manager Du, you're too kind. Wei Yi bowed, then paused before adding, well, Manager Du, actually, I'd like to directly attempt the 5th rank swordsmith exam. What? Du Jiang was stunned, even wondering if he'd misheard. I'd like to directly take the 5th rank swordsmith exam. Should that be possible? Wei Yi asked with a smile. Of course, Wei Yi. Do you think you've already reached the 5th rank? Du Jiang stared at Wei Yi with astonishment. Well, I'm about 80% sure. Wei Yi nodded. Although he didn't say anything definitive, his gaze remained unwavering. Du Jiang stared at Wei Yi, his mouth half open, unsure what to say. He felt the weight of the information was overwhelming, and the emotional impact was a bit strong. He needed to process and calm down. But even after a while, the turmoil in his heart only grew more intense. The more he thought about this, the more shocked he became. He had thought it incredible that Wei Yi had a chance to break through to the 7th rank. He hadn't expected him to actually attempt the 5th rank. Although he didn't know if Wei Yi would ultimately pass the test, this incident still left him deeply moved and shocked. You really surprised me today. Du Jiang calmed down a little, then said, since you want to reach the 5th rank, then I will tell you the details. Although I have never participated in the 5th rank assessment, I still know some general information. The registration fee for the 5th rank swordsmith assessment is 100 taels of silver. The assessment will be held at the sword forging division in King's House City. The required materials must be reported in advance. After the assessment is completed, your sword will be sent to the Military Equipment Bureau in the capital for a series of tests. The final result can only be announced after they are notified. If you can become a 5th rank swordsmith, your status and position will naturally be greatly improved, and you will have more choices. For example, you can choose to join the Military Equipment Bureau and become an engineer officer. You will have an official position, but you may also be subject to more restrictions and have to go to the capital to take up your post. In addition, you can also choose to join a larger force and become their tribute, or join our Wanjian pavilion and become a shop owner. Of course, you can also continue to be a freelance craftsman, and you can also become the head of a line. At this point, Du Jiang seemed to have a sudden thought, his brows suddenly brightening with joy. With a hint of excitement, he said, by the way, Wei Yi, if you can become a 5th rank swordsmith, I will nominate you to be the head of the King's House City hardware handicraft industry. Currently, I hold this position, but since Qiyu Zuanji arrived, he's been vying for it. Prefectly and I have a good relationship. However, according to the relevant laws, Qiyu Zuanji is a 5th rank swordsmith, and is indeed qualified to replace me. So I haven't been in this position for long, but if you can become a 5th rank swordsmith, then it's only natural for me to nominate you to replace me. What does the head of the hardware handicraft industry do? Wei Yi raised his eyebrows, looking at Du Jiang with curiosity. His interest was piqued. Although he had a rough idea, based on the literal meaning, he still wanted to hear what Du Jiang had to say. You should know about guilds, right? Yes, I do. Every guild has its own head, also called a guild master, but these guilds are very finely divided. King's House City has dozens of guilds, large and small, making it impossible for the government to manage them all. So, to facilitate the management of these guilds, we established general guild masters, each of which oversees a number of similar or related industries. For example, the city's ironware, bronzer, gold and silver jewelry, locksmiths, and other guilds are all managed by our general head of the hardware and handicraft industry. While this general head isn't an official position, it holds considerable power. He directly manages the subordinate guilds, including the appointment and removal of heads and the approval of guild charters and regulations. While becoming a general head requires passing a written examination, you're a student, so you'll definitely pass it. So, if you can become a 5th rank swordsmith, the position of general head is yours. Hearing this, Wei Yi's eyes brightened, and a smile curled his lips. There actually was such a position as general head. If he became the head of the guild, wouldn't that mean the entire Ironware Guild, and its leader, Ma Tai, would be under his control from now on? Truly unpredictable. Wei Yi knew that in a world without a force that could overpower all, power often played a greater role. Hadn't Ma Tai previously used his position as head of the Ironware Guild to force the Wei family to close their shop? This was the power of power. Thank you, shopkeeper Du. I'll definitely strive to pass the 5th rank swordsmith exam. I really can't let Qiyu Zhuangji get the head of the guild, Wei Yi said sternly. Well, I also hope you can become a 5th rank swordsmith. That way, Qiyu Zhuangji won't have the chance to curb Bawanji in Pavilion. Du Jiang was filled with hope for Wei Yi. By the way, shopkeeper Du, I have another favor to ask. Wei Yi changed the subject. What is it? Tell me. Wei Yi paused, then told Du Jiang about the Xiangmenlao incident. So I'd like to ask you to use your connections to get the county government to take good care of shopkeeper Meng. I'm afraid Wang Yinchang and his son might harm him, Wei Yi said gravely. The Wan family is truly unscrupulous. Don't worry, leave this matter to me. I'll personally visit the county government. Even if the Wan family and their son are daring, they won't dare to do anything to shopkeeper Meng, Du Jiang said. Then I'd like to thank you, shopkeeper Du. Wei Yi stood up and bowed gratefully. Given our relationship, there's no need to be polite. Besides, when you become a 5th rank swordsmith, I'll be counting on you to take care of me, Du Jiang said with a smile. No matter what rank I become, you will always be my mentor, my benefactor, and my friend, Wei Yi said sincerely. He meant it from the bottom of his heart. Well, your words prove that I, Du Jiang, was right about you. Du Jiang laughed heartily and patted Wei Yi on the shoulder. Thanks to Shimeng Hui for the 100 Kidian coins, and thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 46. It's time to fight back, don't raise it. Wei Yi was about to go to the county yamen with Du Jiang, but just as he left, he saw his 2 bodyguards had returned and were waiting at the entrance to Wanjian Pavilion. They told Wei Yi what they had learned from the yamen, and also mentioned that Guo Pixiu would help. How did Master Guo know that? Wei Yi was a little surprised. Well, we just ran into the young leader at the yamen gate. He asked us what we were doing, and we told him the truth. Yes, our young leader was also furious at the Wan family's bullying, so he decided to help. His uncle is the chief clerk at the yamen, so he has some influence. Wei Yi nodded, knowing that the 2 men were only telling half the truth. They were probably going specifically to ask Guo Pixiu for help. Okay, I'll go and thank Master Guo in person later, Wei Yi said with a smile. Don't be so polite. Our young leader said that your business is his business. Yes, yes. Friends should stick together. Listening to the words of the 2 guards, Wei Yi smiled but said nothing, and nodded slightly. But even with Guo Pixiu's help, he still decided to go to the county government office with Du Jiang. With more people going over to take care of things, Zheng Khan would also understand. This case was not something he could sentence as he wished. And Wei Yi also wanted to go to the prison to see Meng Shulian. In the county prison, Meng Shulian, who was detained awaiting trial, squatted on the straw mat of the cell with her knees hugged. There was an indelible sorrow on her face. But at this moment, a sinister laugh rang out, and the figure of Wan Zai appeared at the door of the cell. Shopkeeper Meng, we meet again. Meng Shulian frowned, but ignored Wan's eye. No talk. Fine, then I'll tell you. You know what my one family wants. Hand over the Lansheng wine recipe to me, and I'll ensure your Xiangmen Lao stays safe. Wan's eye said with a sneer. Meng Shulian remained silent. She truly didn't want to say a word to Wan's eye. Okay, if you ignore me, I'll go talk to your father. He should understand the Meng family's current situation better than you do. No. Meng Shulian snapped. Her father was already seriously ill and bedridden, his condition deteriorating. If he learned of today's events, he would surely die. Finally speaking, Wan's eye sneered. Only my father knows the recipe. He's seriously ill now. If you goad him, he'll surely become enraged, and you'll never learn the Lansheng wine recipe again. Meng Shulian said word by word. Don't lie to me. Wan's eye frowned. The Meng family's Lansheng wine recipe is passed down through males, not females. If you don't believe me, go and ask, Meng Shulian added. Wan's eye's expression changed, and he pondered gloomily. Meng Shulian added, if you truly want the Lansheng wine recipe, you'll have to wait until I'm out of here and talk to my father in person. Now that my Meng family has been in such a dire situation, my father will definitely agree to hand over the recipe. But you have to keep your promise. If you get the recipe, you'll ensure Xiangmen Lao can continue operating. Okay, deal. Wan's eye's lips curled up in a smug smile. He hadn't expected Meng Shulian to be so obedient. Sure enough, that old man Meng Daoan was Meng Shulian's weakness. As long as he got the winner-making recipe, Meng Shulian would be his own, sooner or later. Wei Yi and Liu Jiang arrived at the county government office and met Zheng Kang. Wei Yi also presented 200 taels of silver as a gift. Although he despised such bribery, this was the way the world was, and he had no choice but to adapt. Unless one day he had the power to change the world. Liu Jiang and Zheng Kang chatted casually, seemingly discussing unrelated matters. Every word he said was a reminder for Zheng Kang to remember that the Meng family was once a wealthy family in Kingshao City. Even though their fortunes had declined, they still held considerable prestige. Meng Daoan was a renowned philanthropist, benefiting countless people. Therefore, this case would attract considerable attention. A rash judgment would likely be unconvincing, and could even land him in trouble. Furthermore, Liu Jiang mentioned that the prefect, Lord Li, also enjoyed Xiangmen Lao's roast chicken. He had even specially sent Lord Li a Xiangmen Lao roast chicken a few days ago. Zheng Kang, a clever man, naturally understood Liu Jiang's intentions and the logic behind them. He wasn't stupid, and naturally wouldn't be used as a pawn by the Wan family. He was an official, and the Wan family, however wealthy, were only ordinary citizens. He knew his limits when accepting money for work, and would not do anything that might harm his own interests. Therefore, he implicitly hinted at his commitment to impartiality and truthfulness. He also mentioned the preliminary investigation results, which essentially confirmed the cook's responsibility. Afterward, Zheng Kang also agreed to let Wei Yi visit Meng Shulian in the prison. Wei Yi followed the Yamen runners to the cell where Meng Shulian was being held. He found her standing there, lost in thought, with a solemn expression. Manager Meng. Wei Yi called softly. Hearing that familiar, gentle voice, Meng Shulian felt a sudden surge of warmth in her heart. She immediately looked up, surprised and delighted to see Wei Yi there. Young Master Wei, why are you here? Seeing Wei Yi, Meng Shulian felt the cell seem less cold and dim. It was as if sunlight streamed in, dispelling the gloom. She quickly walked to the cell door, leaned between the bars, and, gazing at Wei Yi outside, felt a warm feeling well up inside her. They didn't give you any trouble, did they? Wei Yi asked, carefully examining Meng Shulian's appearance. She looked exactly the same as before. No, they only questioned me, not made things difficult for me, Meng Shulian replied. Well, that's good. It must be the Wan family again this time, right? Yes, who else could be so despicable? I just experienced it not long ago. It's truly despicable. Wei Yi recounted the incident at the ironware shop. That's the Wan family's usual tactic. They forced my Meng family's wine shop to close down just like that. Can you tell me about your family's relationship with the Wan family? Wei Yi had heard some things, but it was hearsay, and much of it was inaccurate. Of course, it's not a secret to begin with. Meng Shulian recounted how the Meng family rose to prominence in Kingshao City thanks to their Lansheng wine. They quickly opened numerous restaurants and wine shops. And how the Wan family, using all sorts of underhanded tactics, banded together with multiple guilds, and colluded with the government, forced the Meng family to close numerous restaurants and wine shops. Eventually, only Xiangmen Lao remained, reduced from a main store to a shoe shop, barely surviving. No longer able to brew wine, they could only sell the Wan family's wine. But the Wan family's real motive is to obtain the Lansheng wine recipe. Not long ago, Wan Zai came here and forced me to hand over the recipe, but I found an excuse to deceive him. Even if I die, I won't let the Wan family get this Lansheng wine recipe. Meng Shulian gritted her teeth. Don't worry, you won't die. They're the ones who deserve to die. They've been oppressed so much, and now it's time for us to fight back. Even if the restaurant is gone, we can still open it again. The more the Wan family wants something, the more we'll make them lose it. Wei Yi's eyes were blazing, each word precise and powerful. Really? Really? Meng Shulian looked at Wei Yi eagerly. She wanted to fight back, to seek revenge, but she lacked the confidence. After all, the Wan family was like a mountain, intimidating to her. Of course. Think about how difficult our Wei family's situation was once. Now, though, isn't it finally clearing the clouds? Believe me, I'll find a way. Together, we can finally return to Xiangmen Lao's illegitimate restaurant, and Lansheng liquor will be back on the menu. Wei Yi's gaze was resolute and confident. With his culinary skills, helping Xiangmen Lao regain its former glory would be a piece of cake. Moreover, with the system in place, he could unlock a winner-making skill and grind hard. From now on, the Kingshao City liquor business would carry the Wei name. Furthermore, if he could become a 5th grade swordsmith, the Wan family would have to think twice before attempting to harm him. Yes, I believe you. Meng Shulian nodded firmly. She could sense the fiery energy within Wei Yi's gaze. It seemed as if he could break through all obstacles and forge ahead courageously. That power seemed to inspire her too, causing her blood to boil. When oppressed, one must resist. Even if she failed, at least she died a worthy death, better than a lifetime of humiliation. And she truly believed in Wei Yi, unconditionally. Okay, I'll put you through this tonight. After the trial tomorrow, we'll discuss it in detail. Chapter 47 Dayan Partner. After leaving the county government office, Wei Yi, accompanied by 2 guards, arrived at the swordsmith department to register for the 5th rank swordsmith examination. 5th rank swordsmith examination? Hearing Wei Yi's words, Clerk Haodong was filled with surprise. Yes, I want to take the 5th rank examination directly, Wei Yi stated firmly. Are you kidding? You just passed the 9th rank swordsmith examination, and you're taking the 5th rank examination? Haodong was still a little incredulous. After all, the difference between the 9th rank and the 5th rank isn't just a 7th rank, it's a huge watershed. For ordinary swordsmiths, the promotion from 9th rank to 7th rank is easy. But the gap from 7th rank to 5th rank is a chasm that separates countless people. I want to give it a try. Wei Yi didn't elaborate further, placing 100 taels of silver on the table. Okay. Haodong said nothing more. After all, it was his freedom. Even though he couldn't understand, he even thought Wei Yi was a bit arrogant. He thought he had become a 9th rank swordsmith with an A grade score, and that his forged swords were of excellent quality and sought after. He felt truly gifted, capable of transcending the 7th rank and reaching the 5th rank. But naturally, he couldn't express it. After all, there are truths one can only understand through personal experience. And sometimes, failure can help a person better understand themselves and rediscover themselves. Wei Yi was still young, he should experience some failures to help him understand certain lessons. Haodong helped Wei Yi register for the exam and also recorded the materials he would need. Since there wouldn't be any proctoring this time, Wei Yi could take the exam anytime. The day after tomorrow, then. Wei Yi knew the county court would be hearing the Meng family case the next day. He needed to help the Meng family overcome their difficulties before taking the exam. Okay, sure. Haodong said. The next morning, the county court officially opened for the Xiangmen Lao trial. Many onlookers gathered outside. Some were there to watch the fun, while others were concerned about the Xiangmen Lao case. Wei Yi, Du Yu Jiang, Guo Pixiu, and the Meng family's close neighbors and friends also attended. The trial process was uncomplicated, perhaps even quite straightforward. Yesterday's investigation by the county magistrate confirmed the poisonous mushroom incident was the work of Xiang Manlao chef Zhang Crossing. He confessed that he had swapped the restaurant's mushrooms for inferior ones to make money, unexpectedly contaminating them with poisonous mushrooms. He had already committed suicide in prison, fearing his guilt. The case was essentially clear, so the others could be acquitted. However, as the owner of Xiang Manlao, Meng Shulian naturally bore some responsibility and was required to compensate the deceased. The deceased's family demanded a total of 1,000 taels of silver. Ultimately, the magistrate sentenced Meng Shulian to pay each person 100 taels of silver, for a total of 500 taels. With this, the case was concluded, and Meng Shulian was released. He was ordered to raise the necessary funds within 3 days to compensate the deceased's family. The trial concluded, and many of the onlookers dispersed. Du Jiang also left. After Meng Shulian left the courtroom, she went straight to Wei Yi and bowed gratefully, saying, "Master Wei, thank you for your help." She knew full well that the case had been concluded so smoothly thanks to Wei Yi's help. "You're welcome. Let's go back together," Wei Yi said. But just then, Guo Pixiu approached with a smile and said, "Brother Wei, Manager Meng, my carriage is at the door. I'll take you back." Very well. Wei Yi didn't bother to be polite with Guo Pixiu. After all, he had been so helpful this time. It just so happened that he'd invited Guo Pixiu to lunch today, so he could thank him properly. Seeing Wei Yi agree, Guo Pixiu's face lit up, and he turned and shouted, "Let's talk, learn, play, and sing." As soon as these words left his mouth, Wei Yi nearly lost his temper. "Here, master, we are here." Before Guo Pixiu could finish his words, his 4 followers immediately emerged from the crowd. "Hurry up and pull the carriage over," Guo Pixiu shouted. "Okay." The 4 of them ran out quickly. "Mr. Guo, your 4 followers are called Shuo Zudao Chang?" Wei Yi asked curiously. "Yes, I gave them that name. It's an elegant name," Guo Pixiu said with a smug look on his face. "Well, not bad, not bad. A combination of elegance and vulgarity." Wei Yi smiled meaningfully. He really wondered if the leader of the Dayan gang was D Gang. Was there a deputy leader named Yu? "Brother Wei, Manager Meng, please." Wei Yi and Meng Shulian followed Guo Pixiu and got on the carriage together. The carriage left the county government office. Wei Yi looked at Meng Shulian, who was still a little worried, and pondered for a moment. He then said, "Manager Meng, don't worry about the compensation. Come to me later and get 500 taels of silver for emergency use." No, that's not necessary. I'll find a way myself. If all else fails, I can sell the house. I should be able to scrape together the money. Don't be so polite. My Wei family was in trouble back then, thanks to your help. Now it's our turn to repay you. Besides, 500 taels of silver is just a few more swords for me," Wei Yi said sincerely. "That's right, Manager Meng. Brother Wei is now the most famous 9th grade swordsmith in the city. This amount of money is nothing to him. Don't be so polite." Guo Pixiu couldn't help but chime in. "Okay, but don't worry, I will definitely pay you back as soon as possible," Meng Shulian said. "Okay." Wei Yi smiled, but then changed the subject. "But the one family should pay back the money, and they should pay it back 10-fold or 100-fold. "Well said, Brother Wei, you said it very well. That's right, the one family should pay it back. To be honest, you really can't just tolerate this matter. The one family is simply going too far. But if you want to fight the one family now, you seem a little weak. But if you add me, there will be no problem at all," Guo Pixiu said excitedly, patting his chest. Hearing Guo Pixiu's words, Wei Yi was a little surprised. He said something angry, but this guy was so excited. "What are you doing?" Wei Yi asked Guo Pixiu with a look of surprise. "Let's open a restaurant together and wipe out the one family. Your Xiang Manlao was once so popular. Your roast chicken is a true delicacy in King's House City, and your Lansheng wine is even better. My father still raves about it. If we join forces and open a restaurant, with your Meng family's craftsmanship, brother Wei's status as a swordsmith and his financial resources, and the influence of my Guo family, I don't believe we can't defeat the Wan family. When Lansheng wine is relaunched, it will surely regain its former glory. Guo Pixiu exclaimed with a beaming smile. Wei Yi was somewhat surprised to hear Guo Pixiu's words. He hadn't expected Guo Pixiu to have such an idea. It coincided with his own. But thinking about it, joining forces with the Guo family wouldn't be a bad idea. At least, given the current situation, it's a good option. After all, the Guo family is one of the 3 major gangs in the city, with numerous warriors. They're a force to be reckoned with, and even the Wan family would have to be wary of them. You're thinking the same thing as me, Wei Yi said with a smile. Really? Haha, it seems great minds think alike. I knew brother Wei had great ambitions. How about we join forces and accomplish something great? Guo Pixiu looked at Wei Yi and Meng Shuyan with anticipation. Thanks to the digital book friends for the 100 Kidian coins, and thank you all for your monthly votes. Chapter 48 Happy Hour. Of course I have no problem, shopkeeper Meng. What do you think? Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu looked at Meng Shuyan simultaneously. Listening to their words, Meng Shulian's heart beat fast, and a surge of blood seemed to surge through her body. It was as if a ray of light had broken through the darkness before her. Naturally, she was willing to cooperate with Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu. It was indeed not easy for women to run a business in this world. The Meng family had no male heirs, and their father was seriously ill. Now, they had been forced into this predicament by the Wan family. Xiang Manlao would definitely be expelled from the guild, and it would be impossible for them to reopen. Furthermore, they would have to pay a compensation of 500 taels of silver, and they would probably have to sell the house. After this disaster, it would be extremely difficult for the Meng family to make a comeback. And the Wan family would never let them go. What once lay before her was an abyss of despair, but now Wei Yi had built a bridge for her. A bridge to the other side, where the sun was shining, and the scenery was picturesque. Of course I agree. Your willingness to cooperate with me shows you think highly of me, Meng Shulian. I couldn't ask for more, Meng Shulian said excitedly. Her fair face was like the morning glow reflecting on snow, a charming sight. Haha, great. It's a deal then. We'll definitely have Xiang Manlao spread across the streets and alleys once again. Guo Pixiu clapped his hands excitedly. The carriage passed through the bustling streets, carrying the 3 ambitious young people towards the future they had envisioned together. Upon arriving at the Wei residence, Wei Yi directly withdrew a 500 liang silver note from his room and handed it to Meng Shulian. Of the 3, Wei Yi was undoubtedly the wealthiest. Guo Pixiu was merely a second-generation rich kid. While his family was wealthy and powerful, it all came from his father. He had to ask for money when he wanted to spend it. The income from his own small business was a drop in the bucket. Even a few hundred liang of silver was no problem. But compared to Wei Yi, it was nothing. Wei Yi could earn 80 taels of silver per sword, and he had already earned 2,000 taels of silver during this period. He was definitely a wealthy man. Mr. Guo, take shopkeeper Meng to the county government office and deliver the compensation. Then we'll come back together. I'll cook a few dishes for lunch, so you can taste my cooking, Wei Yi said with a smile. Brother Wei, you can cook too? Guo Pixiu was a little surprised. More than that, Wei Yi was not modest. Just wait and see. For some reason, Guo Pixiu felt particularly warm when he heard Wei Yi's words. My admiration for you is truly as endless as the torrent of a river, and as unstoppable as the flood of a sand river, Guo Pixiu said with a boastful expression. Alright, go quickly. When you come back, we can discuss opening a restaurant together. Okay, we'll be right back. Guo Pixiu took Meng Shulian back to the county government office, while Wei Yi went to the blacksmith's shed to watch and guide Shitao as he forged a sword. After giving Shitao some guidance, Wei Yi returned to his room to write. He wasn't planning to forge a sword today, so he dedicated his free time to honing his calligraphy skill. After all, it was about to advance. Wei Yi was eager to see what surprises this advancement would bring him. A long time later, Meng Shulian and Guo Pixiu returned to the Wei residence. The 3 of them discussed opening a restaurant. Wei Yi suggested first opening a distillery to brew Lansheng wine. Once they ensured stable quality, they could consider the restaurant. The three of them hit it off and reached a consensus. Wei Yi would provide the financial support, Meng Shulian would provide the technical expertise, and Guo Pixiu would provide temporary labor. He was primarily responsible for dealing with guilds and finding distilleries for sale. According to Guo Pixiu, many distilleries in the city were struggling under the pressure of the one family. Consequently, many were being sold, making them easy to find. At lunch, Wei Yi cooked 4 dishes, with his aunt helping with 2, for a total of 6. Even before the food arrived, the aroma captivated Guo Pixiu and Meng Shulian, leaving them filled with anticipation for Wei Yi's cooking. Wei Yi's culinary skills had reached the 4th level, and while his culinary skills might not be considered pinnacle, they were nearly there. At least across the entire Great Yan dynasty, few could surpass him. As Meng Shulian and Guo Pixiu waited eagerly, the meal finally arrived. The 6 dishes were distinctly different, and 4 of them were unmistakably Wei Yi's creations. The colors were alluring, the aromas were fragrant, the cuts were exquisite, and the color combination of the ingredients was impeccable. The other 2 dishes looked like home-cooked meals, but they also looked very appetizing. "Come on, pick up your chopsticks and try my cooking," Wei Yi said with a smile. Everyone, already impatient, almost simultaneously reached for the 4 dishes Wei Yi had prepared. The braised pork was especially appealing. It was the dish Meng Shulian and Guo Pixiu wanted to try the most. As they took a bite of the meat, both Meng Shulian and Guo Pixiu's faces lit up with surprise and satisfaction. The meat was rich but not greasy, crispy, and fragrant, melting in the mouth, and the flavor was simply unparalleled. "Oh my god, it's delicious. Brother Wei, you're not kidding. Your cooking is unparalleled," Guo Pixiu couldn't help but exclaim as he chewed the meat carefully. "This is the best braised pork I've ever had, bar none. Even the best chef in this city wouldn't be as good as you." Meng Shulian was also incredibly excited. Her family used to run a restaurant, and she'd enjoyed dishes from top chefs. Naturally, her appreciation for food was far superior to that of ordinary people. So, she was well aware of Wei Yi's culinary prowess. To say it was truly exceptional wouldn't be an exaggeration. However, after her surprise, Meng Shulian's gaze melted once again as she looked at Wei Yi. Wei Yi wasn't just extraordinarily handsome, he was also multi-talented, knowledgeable, and refined. He was a swordsmith, and a master of such culinary skills. It was simply perfect. It was over. It was over. Meng Shulian felt a little tipsy before she'd even started drinking. Wei Yi smiled silently, watching everyone devour their food with a sense of accomplishment. Perhaps this was part of the joy of being a chef. "Brother Wei, with your skills, even if we don't sell alcohol anymore, our restaurant will be a citywide sensation," Guo Pixiu said excitedly. "I'm not a chef, but I could definitely teach 1 or 2 apprentices," Wei Yi said with a smile. He found cooking for himself, family, and friends a joy, a pleasure. But cooking for a large group of guests every day would be a waste of fun. He did have an idea, however. He wanted to occasionally host a high-end banquet for a dozen people at the restaurant. A high-end banquet that perfectly blended delicious food, fine wine, beautiful women, poetry, song, and dance. He would specifically invite and entertain the city's dignitaries. That way, he could captivate their taste buds with delicious food and wine, and also conquer these dignitaries. No matter how powerful the one family became in the future, they would never be able to challenge their restaurant's status. Good food always brings happiness and joy. After feasting heartily, everyone was delighted, their faces beaming. On his way back from the county government office, Guo Pixiu bought a jar of green bamboo wine. It was one of the few drinks in the city not brewed by the one family. While not particularly delicious, it certainly added to the fun. After 3 rounds of drinks, Wei Yi and Guo Pixiu were already arm in arm, calling each other brothers, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Wei Zu, Wei King, and Shitao had already left the table. Meng Shulian, meanwhile, remained by Wei Yi's side, enjoying a drink and chatting. She was the restaurant owner, after all, so she could handle a lot. However, even though the 3 of them were drinking, Meng Shulian's gaze remained fixed on Wei Yi. He was in her heart, in her eyes. For her, sharing a table with Wei Yi, drinking and discussing the future, was something she had never dreamed of. Not to mention his heroic act, saving her from danger. The past 2 days had been both a nightmare and a dream for her. Now that the storm had passed, they were about to embark on a future together. Even if he only considered her a friend and a partner, it was a blessing for her. Brother Wei, to be honest, and I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, my father constantly calls me good for nothing, and I really can't accept that. So, I want to make a career on my own, to show him that, while I may not be very good at martial arts, I'm not completely useless. As the wine got underway, Guo Pixiu spoke his mind. I understand. Don't be sad, brother Guo. Your father will be proud of you. Come on, let's have another drink together. Wei Yi raised his glass and said, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Writing Skills, Penetrating Deeply. After Guo Pixiu left, Wei Yi dispatched 4 guards to escort Meng Shulian home. They were to remain at the Meng residence temporarily to protect her and her family. Guo Pixiu had also promised to immediately arrange for additional guards upon his return. After all, the one family's thieves were still entrenched, and they had to be on guard. Wei Yi, still in high spirits, returned to his room and began to brush and paint, continuing to hone his calligraphy skills. He was now on the verge of upgrading his skills. He felt that, if he put in enough effort today, he might be able to reach the required proficiency. As he wrote furiously, the energy of his brush and ink continuously flowed into his mind, and his mind became increasingly clear. Stories from his memories came to mind, and his pen flowed fluently. As he wrote, an idea struck him. If he ever opened a restaurant, he could hire a storyteller. He could recite the classic novels he had copied daily. Surely, that would attract customers. But the thought was fleeting, and his thoughts quickly returned to copying stories. It was like rereading a classic novel. After an afternoon of writing, the ink and brush energy within Wei Yi's mind had already gathered, giving rise to a second sapling. His writing skill was only 3% away from reaching the next level. After dinner, Wei Yi continued to work on his writing skill, continuing until midnight, when he finally reached that final 3%. Finally, I can advance. Perfect timing. Wei Yi said happily, stretching. It was right before bedtime, so upgrading his writing skill wouldn't interfere with his rest. He cleaned his desk, hung up his brushes, and arranged his paper and inkstone. Wei Yi blew out the candles and went to bed. Lying down on the bed, Wei Yi's mind moved, and his writing skill instantly advanced to the 4th level. At the same time, a familiar feeling washed over him. A flood of information flooded his mind, and a subtle current coursed through his body, and Wei Yi fell into a deep sleep once again. The moonlight was like water, and the autumn breeze was cool. As sunlight once again shone across the earth, dispelling some of the chill, Wei Yi's eyelashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. A brilliant light seemed to blaze from his bright pupils. At the same time, memories from last night, merging into his mind, flooded back, stirring the forest of brush and ink within his sea of consciousness. Countless leaves fluttered, transforming into swelling dragons and snakes. As the new memories became clearer, a delighted smile slowly crept across Wei Yi's lips. The energy of brush and ink can be so miraculous. Wei Yi excitedly exclaimed, sitting up from his bed. With this upgrade in his calligraphy skills, his brushwork had reached new heights. His strokes swirled like a flying snake, thunder rising from the air. However, what delighted him most was that this advancement had indeed yielded a unique method for harnessing the energy of brush and ink. This method, called 3 points into the wood, resembled some kind of magical technique. He could mobilize the forest of brush and ink within himself, channeling the energy beneath his pen, forming words and merging them into objects, granting an object certain properties or special powers. For example, by invoking the forest of ink and pen, and performing a penetrating spell, one could write the words dispel evil on a stone. The stone would then possess the power to ward off evil spirits. The power of this warding off evil spirits depends on both the realm of the forest of ink and pen, and the depth of the artistic conception embodied in the writing. In other words, the more forests of ink and pen in one's sea of consciousness, and the higher one's realm, the greater the power of the penetrating spell. And the more profound and extraordinary the artistic conception embodied in the writing, the greater its power. For example, if one wants to increase the hardness of an object, writing hard would certainly not be as effective as writing indestructible. So, in the future, wouldn't I be able to combine this calligraphy skill with my blacksmithing skills, to enhance the quality of my swords, or even create magical weapons with extraordinary power? And the poems in calligraphy I write could even have a similar effect to talismans. Wei Yi grew increasingly excited as he thought about it. He even felt that the poems in his mind could become some kind of magical power. For example, using the ingenious technique of penetrating 3 inches into the wood, he could write verses of profound artistic conception within his swords. Perhaps he could imbue the swords with sword spirit, endowing them with some kind of magical power. One day I'll forge 2 swords, one named Ganjiang and the other Mo Yi. Then, using the ingenious technique of penetrating 3 inches into the wood, he would write verses within them. Swords twin dragons, snowflakes illuminate lotus flowers. Brilliant light pierces heaven and earth, thunderous surges unstoppable. I wonder what kind of power these 2 swords will possess? Wei Yi pondered. He had many phrases in mind that could imbue these swords with sword spirit. For example, a hall full of flowers intoxicates 3,000 guests. A single sword chills 14 states. The lightning fast sword in my hand slashes the long whale. The seas part. Sword slashes through the clouds, and all the princes flock to the west. The sword rises and flies across thousands of miles to slay the stars. The wind and thunder follow the rain with a harsh roar. The sword crosses the stars. The dragon's light appears. The belt rings. The wind chills the crane's back. However, based on the information he had integrated, Wei Yi knew that not everything he could write using the ingenious technique of penetrating 3 inches into the wood could be written. If the power inherent in the text is too strong or too dark, such as curses or killing, then one might suffer the backlash of the laws of heaven and earth. This could even lead to one being tainted with certain karmic obstacles and beset with misfortune. Furthermore, this technique can only be used on inanimate objects. Furthermore, if one alters the nature of an object too drastically, the laws of heaven and earth will also backfire. For example, if one were to make a feather weigh more than Mount Tay, not to mention whether one possesses sufficient brush and ink energy, the backlash from the laws of heaven and earth would be enough to cause serious consequences. Therefore, the most correct approach is to enhance an object's inherent properties by following its natural laws. This is easy to understand. This penetrating power is like borrowing the power of heaven. Borrowing heaven's power inevitably comes at a price. If you adapt to heaven's laws and make minor changes, you can naturally offset the cost with brush and ink energy. If you alter the laws of heaven too drastically, brush and ink energy won't be able to offset the cost, and you might even suffer backlash from heaven. Of course, if one day one's brush and ink realm reaches a high enough level, perhaps it was truly possible to defy the laws of nature, to grant a tiny feather the might of Mount Tay. Wei Yi quickly dressed and left the bed, then went to his desk, ready to test his unique technique. He took a sheet of soft rice paper and spread it across the desk. Lifting his brush in his right hand, he subtly summoned the forest of ink and brush within his sea of consciousness. Countless leaves flew up, dancing like dragons and phoenixes. Then, they transformed into countless strands of ink, converging towards Wei Yi's brush. This ink energy was invisible, perceptible only to Wei Yi himself. He wrote the 4-character idiom resilience on the rice paper. With each character, a large leaf fell from the tree. By the time he finished writing the 4 characters, nearly half of the leaves had fallen from the tree. Sure enough, this method, capable of penetrating deeply into the wood, consumed a significant amount of ink and brush energy. However, Wei Yi also knew that he had only just cultivated one large tree and one small one. If he truly cultivated a forest of ink and brush, he would be able to consume this little ink and brush energy. But just like taking a scoop of water from a lake, it doesn't feel like too much. After writing the 4 words, there was actually no writing on the paper. But when Wei Yi picked up the rice paper, he could already clearly feel the change. The originally soft paper seemed to have turned into tough craft paper, and it took a lot of effort to tear it apart. This is a great method. Wei Yi was delighted. This was like turning stone into gold. Thanks to GGAO for the reward of 500 Kidian coins. Thanks to Shuchang and Digital Book Friends for the reward of 100 Kidian coins each. And thank you all for your monthly tickets. Chapter 50. This sword has great promise. Wei Yi didn't continue using his incisive technique. After all, he only had a limited amount of energy left. He had to be frugal and use it wisely. Then, as usual, he began practicing the external skills of the Legion body refining technique. The sweat from his workouts dispelled the morning chill. Advancing his fitness skills was now within reach. At his current rate of improvement, he estimated he would reach the next level in 4 or 5 hours. After breakfast, Wei Yi went to the swordsmith department to prepare for the examination to become a 5th grade swordsmith. He had informed his aunt and sister about this examination in advance. His aunt and sister were naturally surprised to learn that Wei Yi was taking the examination. After all, Wei Yi had only been a swordsmith for a short time. But despite their surprise, they didn't realize the magnitude of the gap between the 9th and 5th grades. Previously, they only knew of 9th grade swordsmiths. As for the other grades, they had little idea. Beyond their surprise, they were filled with anticipation and joy. As Wei Yi's closest relatives, they naturally hoped for his continued success, for him to become even more extraordinary. When Wei Yi arrived at the sword forge, Du Jiang was already waiting. Although he wasn't required to assist with the exam this time, and wasn't even allowed to observe, and forging a single sword took at least 2 or 3 days, Du Jiang couldn't help but want to come, eager to witness the miracle. He was even more nervous than Wei Yi at that moment. He felt that Wei Yi, having just become a 9th rank swordsmith, had jumped directly from the 7th rank to the 5th rank, a bit too ambitious, and perhaps with a low probability of success. Yet, he also longed for a miracle, hoping Wei Yi would surprise him again. He was deeply conflicted. He hadn't even slept well the previous night, eager to find out the results today. Wei Yi, on the other hand, remained calm and at ease. The area in the sword forge courtyard, once used for forging iron, was now completely enclosed by an impenetrable wooden wall. Aside from the entry-level 9th grade test, all other swordsmith exams must be conducted in a closed environment. Everything hinges on the quality of the final sword. Wei Yi chatted with Du Jiang for a few words before officially beginning his exam. Du Jiang and the swordsmiths left the courtyard. Inside Giant Feng Tower. 5th grade swordsmith exam. Are you sure you heard correctly? Qiu Zuanji looked at Chen Fule in surprise. The swordsmiths had recently sent word that Wei Yi had taken the 5th grade exam. Yes, it's the 5th grade exam. They said Wei Yi skipped the 7th grade and took the 5th grade exam. Chen Fule confirmed. What's this kid up to? Qiu Zuanji couldn't understand. Wei Yi had only recently become a 9th grade swordsmith. If he was exceptionally talented and had made a breakthrough in a short period of time, he'd have a chance of becoming a 7th grade swordsmith. But for him to take the 5th grade exam directly was a bit overconfident. As a 5th rank swordsmith, he understood better than anyone the enormous gap between the 7th and 5th ranks. They were two completely different fields, with completely different forging philosophies. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say it was a case of breaking down before rebuilding. The technical difference was like a chasm. Even Wei Yi, no matter how gifted he was, couldn't have bridged that gap so quickly. Don't worry, he's just bored. Qiu Zuanji sneered. He didn't believe Wei Yi could pass the 5th rank swordsmith exam. Unlike the 9th rank exam, the 5th rank exam didn't require the forging of 2 swords in a row. This time, Wei Yi only needed to forge 1. However, the forging process for a 5-star dual sword was far more complex than a single dual sword. The most crucial and complex step wasn't the heat treatment, but the alloying process. Wei Yi had numerous methods in mind. The highest performing alloys required a rigorous refinement process. So, near noon, a burst of intense hammering suddenly erupted. The clerk, Du Jiang, and the others in the front hall jumped up in surprise and looked in the direction of the sound. Although they could see nothing, the hammering was so fast that it seemed beyond human power. Only a warrior of the lower rank could possess such astonishing explosive power. Of course, Du Jiang also understood the principle that skill is close to the Tao. Master craftsmen at the pinnacle of skill might not possess any cultivation, yet they could still possess abilities beyond the ordinary and master unparalleled skills. However, as a swordsmith himself, Du Jiang knew how difficult it was to achieve such a level of ironwork with mere mortal strength. Furthermore, Wei Yi was only a young man. However, Du Jiang never dwelled on things he couldn't fathom. After his surprise, Du Jiang's anticipation grew. Perhaps Wei Yi could actually create another miracle. It took Wei Yi less than 3 days to complete the assessment. When he walked out of the courtyard, holding the newly forged sword, and arrived at the swordsmith's front hall, Du Jiang was the first to rush up. He had been coming to the swordsmith's office almost daily these days, eager for Wei Yi to complete his assessment. He wanted to see the sword he had forged with his own eyes. Wei Yi, let me see it. Du Jiang's expression was filled with excitement, and he couldn't wait to take the sword from Wei Yi's hands. The sword's appearance alone gave it an air of extraordinary power. The ripples on the blade resembled a soaring dragon, and the silver light it emanated was like a flash of thunder, unbearable to look at directly. Du Jiang's heart pounded as he gazed at the sword. It truly had the quality and aura of a 5-beaded sword. Although he wasn't a 5th rank swordsmith, he had handled many 5-beaded swords and had a basic appreciation for them. But after all, a 5-beaded sword can't be judged solely by appearance. Just seeing Wei Yi's sword reassured him, making him even more eager for a miracle. At the same time, Suhi, the envoy, and several clerks quickly gathered around, curiously examining Wei Yi's newly forged sword. This sword is in excellent condition. Yes, it looks very much like a 5-bead sword. It truly looks extraordinary. Suhi and the clerks discussed. Their gazes upon Wei Yi were now filled with admiration. Perhaps they still felt a certain degree of uncertainty about Wei Yi's chances of passing the 5th rank swordsmith exam. But regardless, the fact that Wei Yi had forged such an exceptional sword was already highly admirable. Even if they failed this time, they believed that Wei Yi would soon become a 5th rank swordsmith. Afterward, Du Jiang and Suhi, the envoy, conducted a basic performance test on Wei Yi's sword. As expected, the sword proved flawless. They used it to chop the sword testing rod used to test the 3-bead sword as easily as cutting melons and vegetables. This proved that its hardness and toughness surpassed those of a 3-bead sword. There seemed to be a real hope of reaching the level of a 5-beaded pearl sword. But they didn't dare assert it. After all, they couldn't perform the 2 most crucial aspects of a 5-beaded pearl sword's performance, and the most rigorous tests. One was its stability under varying extreme environments, and the other its resistance to the warrior's blood and ki. Only by passing these 2 tests could a 5-beaded pearl sword be considered truly qualified. Regardless, it at least proved that Wei Yi now possessed at least the strength of a 7th grade swordsmith. Wei Yi, your sword has great promise. Du Jiang looked at Wei Yi with relief, feeling that a miracle might indeed occur. The Great Yan dynasty might indeed be about to produce the youngest 5th grade swordsmith in history. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.